Hey Sheldon, it's Sean here. Just doing a quick audio check.
Hey, you got John today.
John, that's just as good.
Perfect.
Is Sean with us today? I got it. Yeah. No, I'm not thinking.
Hi, Councillor Broadhead. It's Cheryl in the chambers. Can we do a quick sound check?
Certainly can. Can you hear me?
Perfect, loud and clear, thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi, Stephen, it's Cheryl in the chambers. Can we do a quick sound check? Hi, Elizabeth. It's Cheryl in the chambers. Can we do a quick sound check?
Absolutely, Cheryl. I can hear you good.
Perfect. Thank you. Hi, Danielle. It's Cheryl in the chambers. Can we do a quick sound check?
Hey, Cheryl.
Perfect. Thank you.
Have you already done your sound check, Wes? I'm just checking to see if this works.
Yeah, no, I have. So you're coming through loud and clear here.
Great, thank you.
Bet.
Okay, I haven't on mine, so just make sure that my sounds good as well. Thank you.
One o'clock. Pay attention, pay attention. See, someone stole my gavel. Somebody moved it. All right. Good morning, everyone. Afternoon. That was Mike that said morning, I think. Or maybe it was Ken. I'll call the meeting to order for Tuesday, November 19th. Attendance at the start of the meeting is 100% with Councillor Jolly and Councillor Broadhead attending virtually. Adoption of the agenda. I'm unaware of any changes, so we can just move the motion as presented if anyone wants to do that.
That the November 19th, 2024 agenda be adopted as presented.
Sorry, I'm laughing because you didn't even push the button. You just get in there. Call for the vote. Voting's closed. And that carries unanimously. I have two registered speakers. Trustee Rouse becoming a very familiar face in Chambers. And Mike Yocum, do you guys both want to speak now? Mike, yeah, okay. Trustee,
If you, do you have another one?
no,
over
just the
above
two of
Mike?
you, just the two of
Just
you.
the two of us?
Yep.
We're just getting our technical presentation set up here.
We got the man and, okay.
Oh. Getting thumbs up from Sean. Thanks so much.
All right, start whenever you are ready.
All right, thanks again for having us today. I'm here mostly this afternoon just to provide some further information from previous presentations that we've made. And it's in regards to servicing and infrastructure in Erin Ridge North. Today, I just want to share a little more detail about the evolution of our student tsunami in St. Albert Public Schools. So previously, I've shared that we've had a student enrollment growth has outpaced that of the city population from 2018 to 24. And we'll go back to sort of a State of the Union as of 2019. When we had the provincial budget was delayed that year until October, but it also included a funding announcement for the modernization and expansion of Belrose Composite High School as phase 2 of the division's high school space plan that was developed from a feasibility study that was completed in 2017. Student enrollment had grown 20% over the previous 5 years, and kindergarten cohorts were approaching 600 students. At that time, the 870 student capacity K-9 Joseph M. Demko had just opened, and the rest of K-9 was overflowing with students in non-permanent spaces. Another K-9 was needed in Riverside within 5 years, and another high school site was needed for phase 3 of the school space plan. Throughout 2020 through 2022, the division worked with Alberta Education and city staff and submitted a proposal for a P3 in partnership with Landrex on the planned high school site in Erin Ridge North, once the city's annexation was complete. Upon direction from Alberta Education and Infrastructure, and in the absence of a suitable high school site in January of 2023, the $46.3 million was recommitted to Belrose, which, as you know, just commenced this past spring. So where we had a little bit of time to breathe in 2019, we had about 2 to 5 years at that time. The need has not eased since then. And so now we'll look forward at 2024 and what's happened since then. What we can see is that cohorts grow. Oops, I'm trying to have a little pointer here.
There we go.
Our cohorts grow as they go through the grades. And so the class that was in kindergarten in 2014, we're getting a better pointer here. Thank you. In 2014, this class of kindergarten was 598. We fast forward through to 2024. It's now a class of over 900 in grade 10. So that's a growth of 51%. The kindergarten class from 2020, right here, has grown over 16% to over 700 in grade 4 alone. Over 50% of these classes in 2024 are over 700. And the tsunami is still coming. Over 50% are over 700. And what you'll also notice is this line right here with ECS students, where back in 2014 through to 2016, we were under 600, but they've been well over 600 ever since. And so we know they'll continue to grow as they age. Another component is around school sites and their size that I wanted to just give you a little bit of a visual on. On the left, we have Paul Kane High School, and this sort of highlighted line is to show you the size of the actual site. There is about 11.7 acres compared to Belrose is just over 18 acres there on that site, combined with the fields. On our next slide, this is our 2 existing schools in the north and those sites. One is on the right is shared, Joseph M. Demko and Sister Alphonse Academy share that site. Together, it sits on about 15 acres.
Christy, your time is up. I don't want to rush you, but I try to stick to the 5-minute rule. So is there a specific, I mean, I know you're here to support Councillor Hughes's motion. Can you sum this up in like the next couple of seconds? Yeah.
I
thanks.
can, if you,
Yeah.
would you prefer to come back to this and if there's questions around the
Well, I
importance
just
of
want to give you the
size?
opportunity to sum up and then there might be questions. Yes.
Sure. Okay. Maybe Sean, if I can trouble you to speed ahead a few, keep going. Thank you. And one more. Thank you. So really our point here today is that we really, 5 years ago, we had time, but now we don't. And the opportunity with the School Construction Accelerator Program did not exist 3 months ago. And we really need to be acting now to fulfill a need that has existed for years. And so our administration continues to work to find out those pieces from Alberta Education and Infrastructure of, what is going to satisfy site readiness for immediate application to the accelerator program. And so we thank you, council, for considering moving this forward.
Okay. Real quick, even before they announced the 8.6 billion. Just, and maybe you guys can answer this, but do the school boards annually submit capital requests and priorities?
We do.
Yeah,
Each
okay.
and every year, we have a
Yeah.
3-year capital plan, and we come and present our plan to council every year.
No, not to us, because we're not funding the school, right? It's
No.
it's the province. Like, are they aware of your capital priorities?
Oh, yes.
Annually?
Oh,
Sorry.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yes.
I got Councillor Hughes with the question.
Thank you. So you were mentioning about the site size. So what were you trying to convey about the site size issues?
Okay, what I would say to that was that, we really understand. Sean, can I trouble you to back up to the slide that has Joseph M. Demko? This one, perfect, thank you.
One more.
We understand that there's significant limitations around the municipal reserve limitations within the MGA. And that has been some of the advocacy we've undertaken along with the city of Lethbridge back in 2023. And we also really appreciate that this council has taken forward advocacy around, how can we restructure that education property tax to be able to use some funds for municipal infrastructure. So that being said, these sites that are within the 10% reserve allotment makes it really, really challenging to have a properly sized site when you have schools of, in this case, Joseph M. Demko has a capacity of 870 students, and Lois E. Hole has a capacity of 600. And you might, in your spare time, drive by those schools during dismissal and school start times, because it's really, really challenging up there. And the city benefits from being able to use the fields as well. But we can't emphasize enough the importance of a properly sized site.
Okay, and so the site that we're referencing in the northeast, how many acres is that, like compared to the size that you guys want?
Sean, can we trouble you to the next slide, please? So this one here shows, we've got the initial draft from 2020 with the photo on the left that shows there's sort of a gray area here that shows 20 acres.
Okay.
And then this, I'm not totally sure what this piece here, I'm going to probably defer that to administration and.
It looks like a
and Mike from
stormwater
Matrix.
to me. It looks like a stormwater pond to me just by the size, but anyway.
And then when we see last November, this is sort of the site here.
Okay.
And then when we proceed to further amendments that were done, we have there's 3 sites in the plan. So here, here, and here, and they've changed in size a bit.
And I do, just to save you a little bit, Christy, I think it's unfair to ask the question until we have a neighborhood structure plan. Like, we don't even know, right? The size of the sites. So,
Okay.
because
Well, I
there
just
was
thought
talk
there'd be a
of
bump.
combining it and stuff, and that will be at the next stage of our planning process. So it's kind of an unfair question.
Okay, I was just looking for a ballpark.
Yeah, and
Because they were just looking at overall size. Okay. So I guess my question to you is, if, let's say, another school doesn't get built in the next 3 years, what do you do with the kids?
That's the sardine slide. We don't have anywhere to go at this time. So we the need for a properly sized site has been there for over 5 years.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're good?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got everyone lined up. I saw Counselor Broadhead and Counselor Joe, your hands down now. You're good?
I might put it back up.
Okay, sure. I'll go Counselor Broadhead, then Counselor Romansky, then Counselor Mackay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Trustee Rouse, for coming to make a presentation. You had a slide there on the School Accelerator Fund. Can you just talk to me about that a little bit? What is the province actually committed to, and what's your understanding of the process to get in on or at least be eligible to access this kind of money?
That is certainly something that our administration is working on ironing out those details. I would say we've identified that we need to come at it from both angles, both from the school board's perspective as well as this municipality, to be able to, if we have a commitment from the province that they really want to try and make this work however possible and look for opportunities to streamline and or accelerate on compressed timelines, that's their commitment. But unless we're, reaching out and saying, hey, we really need to get in on this, and the sooner the better, of course, there's no guarantee that we will get it, but it's better to be on the list than not.
Yeah, I hear you there. So, but the specific application criteria, that is not known yet, or is it in development, or what do you know about that?
What we do know is that under the traditional process, there is a site readiness checklist. And so there's certainly an opportunity there to, within administrations, to identify where those opportunities are to expedite within that checklist.
All right, thank you very much, Trustee Rouse. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Wes. Counselor Romansky.
Thank you. Nice to see you again, trustee. The one question I had was related to the graph where you had the increase in students. So the main jump, I think it was from 751 to 904, grade 9 to 10. So when they entered high school, you had that almost couple hundred student jump. Are you predicting the next 2 years, like where's that 200 students or 150 students come from, that there's that jump at high school all of a sudden?
Well, so this here is a pretty good indicator that when we've got students that are currently in grade 7 and younger, where we've got those groups already well over 700, we know that the biggest jump tends to occur from grade 9 to grade 10. So it's really just sort of a prediction, taking these out, that they're going to continue to grow.
And that's just the public school board. So
That's right.
it'd be my guess they're coming from another division in high school.
That's certainly a piece of it.
Yeah, a piece of it, yeah.
So you don't know where the students come from then to increase the 751 to the 904?
We've got some historical data, but no.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Counselor Mackay.
Thank you. Thanks for coming back again. We're gonna have to book you a regular seat.
Yeah. I was gonna start with, yeah, it's me again.
Yeah, well, that's good. I'm glad. I appreciate your passion and I understand your passion. I mean, these numbers alone speaks to the importance of what you keep presenting to us, and it's not lost on us. The problem is how. The how is going to be the challenge. And so going back to something that was asked earlier by Councillor Broadhead in relation to some of the criteria that we're not aware of in relation to the School Construction Accelerator Fund. It is over 3 years, correct? So potentially the first schools will be identified in a 2020 or 2025 budget. Then there's a 26 budget. And then the program potentially wraps up on the 2027 budget.
Right, and so to Counselor Broadhead's question as well around the program, it is taking place over 3 years, but we do know that we're not the only municipality in the exact same boat. And so, yeah, that's
Yeah.
something that I think the province is looking for, is demonstration that you're trying to make this work.
But I mean, so potentially though, you could receive funding in 2027 and still be eligible for the program to move forward to build the school if all of our processes work potentially. I mean, I guess it's unfair. Did you look at our backgrounder report that administration prepared? And they're saying that if everything falls in line, like, I mean, we have the Northeast, like, ASP is required to go through EMRB and everything else. And if everything goes through, 2027 probably will be achievable. And if 2027 is achievable, would that still put you in line to get the funding? I mean, taking effect that perhaps there's a whole bunch of advocacy work that has to be done now and next year, but 2027 would still get you into that window?
Theoretically.
Yeah.
But I mean, none of us had a crystal ball that this was going to be there 3 months ago, and it could be gone 6 months from now too. They could say, sorry, we've got all of the applications that we can fulfill.
Yeah, you're correct on that. I mean, we didn't need a crystal ball to know our numbers. And I think the province realized that they were caught in a situation, and kudos for them to recognize it. But, you know, I did look at kind of the site, you referred also to the site selector that education and infrastructure goes through. So I do have that here, and it outlines quite a few criteria that has to be met to be successful in getting a site. And a lot of that would be not achievable if we don't follow our normal planning processes to get us to like the information that they require in relation to everything from studies to transportation studies to geotechnical studies to how do we transfer the land, how do we get the site ready? All of those things are there. So, I mean, you see the challenge, I think, is facing administration, correct? I mean, I'm just saying we have to get all those things in place anyways before a site's selected. So I'm glad you were able to review that, because I mean, I think potentially if administration gets their way, we can get something ready by 2027 with a big if, and I apologize the ifs, but there's so many unknowns, right?
Mhm.
And so anyways, I'm just, part of my concern was that maybe you didn't see the background and you didn't have that information. And I thank you thanks again for presenting them.
Councillor Killick, you're up.
Thank you. Simple question. I think, what is the optimal size of a site for a high school? Because we just showed maps of varying sizes, but what is the optimal size that would
Can I try
best meet?
to go back to the one that has both Belrose and Paul Kane on it right now? Thank you. So, I mean, a very, very current example would be what's happening with Belrose right now. With the modernization and the expansion that's happening there. It's currently sitting on 18.71 acres. And with because of the size of the site, we're somewhat limited in the expansion, just sort of in this area. And we wouldn't and shouldn't do a school site on anything smaller than that. So 18 acres is sort of the benchmark that we work with. And of course, bigger is better. I think, Sean, if I could trouble you to go to the site that has, or the slide that has the 3. This one here. So in this initial draft, this one here also had 3 separate fields here as almost more of a community amenity site model that was a fairly pie in the sky idea, and this was also urban village park spaces here as well, so that's a big site. With more space, you can spread out a little more.
And that accommodates parking, school, kind of not mandatory, but preferred sports fields typically.
Yes. And I think you've probably heard of some of the challenges around Belrose even before the modernization and expansion when it came to parking as well, right? And that's in a schools that was, what is the age of it? It was opened in the late 80s. So.
Thank you.
Councillor Hughes, go ahead. Oh, I have Councillor Jolly and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Hughes.
Sure.
Thank you. So just kind of going to the size again. So from what I understand, the site in the AASP is kind of in that 4-acre ballpark. So do you know if there's funding from the province or the school board to purchase additional land to be used for a school site?
That I think is a joint ask that would need to happen. What we are not sure of is as these drafts evolved, where the decision was made to shrink the sites a bit. And we, assuming at the NSP level, would be the opportunity to consolidate the space.
Okay, so you'd need to kind of see that plan before you'd be able to make a decision about putting a school site there. Just kind of considering the 4-acre size.
Considering that it's evolved from what was well over 20 acres to what it is now, then yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hughes, go ahead.
Yeah, just one more question. Do you know if the provinces, like when they're announcing the schools, is it all happening at once? Like, is it going to be, I had my dates because of what I was expecting budget to be. I don't know when they're actually making decisions or how they're doing this. They're rolling it out.
There have been
There's been some already, and I think
some
3,
already
yeah, yeah.
announced.
Okay.
Beaumont was a good example that they had acted within a month of the accelerator program being announced to be in a position to be awarded some of the program dollars already.
Okay. Is it, so it's not waiting for budget then? It can be.
Right.
Okay. Because then my dates could change. I guess that's what I'm saying. There may not be the imminence that, okay. Thank you.
I think some of this is coming from the provincial surplus. I'm not sure, but then they don't have operating dollars for the schools, which is always interesting. But yeah, okay, I think that's it for questions. Yeah, we're all good here. Thank you, Christy. Sorry, Trustee Rouse. Oh, you got another one? Go
Yeah.
ahead.
And I apologize, because I'm gonna guess that you may not be able to answer this question, but it goes back to Councillor Mackay's comments and reviewing the checklist that says all these steps must be taken, even under the current model, geotechnical study, etc. Any idea how Beaumont would have been able to go so quickly into, literally a month of saying, oh, we're going to buy this land from a developer. That's where the school is going to go, and it got awarded.
Mhm.
Do you have any sense were they able to skip all of those planning, transportation, corridor steps, or how did they get it so quickly approved when their checklist is like quite robust?
Right. I mean, I will defer to both our administration as well as we've got Mike from Landrex here who would be more familiar with some of the processes that developers are included on. But I suspect from knowing just from similar, or the school division out there. This has been something that has been in the works for quite some time, but they were in a position they were in a better position and more advanced down that checklist.
Yeah, I don't like asking a question on behalf of another community where, or municipality where you're not really the experts to speak on it, but I just wondered how they were able to accelerate it and still meet all the criteria. And get to a funding, successful point. So I don't know. Does anybody else? Mike, do you have any comments?
He's coming up, yeah.
No. Okay. Thank
And
you.
I'm not 100% sure that Beaumont has been given provincial dollars. Have they?
There was the announcement on the city of Beaumont's website. that-
They just announced that they bought the school site, but I don't think they've been granted the school yet. I'm not sure. I'm just actually trying to find it because we were just at Bill Daniluk State of the City and he didn't even mention the school. He mentioned the school site.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
why I was asking the question, I guess, is that
Yeah,
I also noticed that they have a site, but
I was just trying to do.
they're not on
how
the provincial
fast.
list yet, I
Yeah,
guess.
this is as of October of 24, so.
Yeah,
I would be entirely speculating, but
Yeah.
that perhaps indicates that they've demonstrated to the province that they're ready to go, and therefore they've met the need or met the criteria to receive funding.
And they bought it
the
in an
budget.
existing neighborhood that was fully roaded and serviced and stuff. That helps, right? Okay, I see no more questions. So Mike, why don't you come up? You might get a bunch of questions about Beaumont now.
Hello, I don't have a presentation, but I sent an email last night to council and the city manager with a lot of information on it, so I thought I'd show up and kind of explain that email and then be here for any questions that council has. So in the email, I had talked about two constraints that we've obviously known about here to bring this school site ready. One of those is the sanitary capacity that we're all been faced here in the last couple of years. And the other one is obviously getting planning documents ready to have a site be ready. So I'll talk a little bit about sanitary constraint. So I've been working with administration for the last kind of 3 years. We've known this problem has happened for the last 3 years. And so we've been working on some temporary measures and we've been utilizing that capacity. And then now we're at the point where we don't have that. And so one of the ideas that we've had and we've presented to administration was utilizing a 1200 millimeter pipe that's currently underutilized. And that pipe there was built to handle all of the north and all of the areas that we see in the ASP currently. And so right now we're using maybe about 10 or 20% of that pipe. And so the idea of that is to put an orifice at the front of the plate to block it and use it as storage, essentially the pipe. And so we have a plan. We're sending that into administration this week for review. That plan would buy us, we believe, at least a year, possibly 2 years. And so that might help us with possible constraints and timing moving forward with the school site. The second one is the planning. And so, I did see the agenda that administration had provided, and they are running items concurrently through that planning. The schedule that I had brought forward runs things concurrently. And so in there, we would be running the NSP zoning subdivision concurrently. And back to the Beaumont, that's, I don't have the details for Beaumont, but I'm guessing that that's kind of what happened there. I believe they consolidated through. They might have already had an ASP and NSP approved in that one. And so that's a little different than what we're experiencing here. I want to kind of work back onto our ASP. And so before this year, we had in St. Albert just an ASP, and that's how we moved forward. We've moved to a 2-tier system. In my opinion, I believe that we have provided a lot of information in the ASP that when we move to an NSP, we're not going to see that much more detail than what we see in the ASP. So I do believe that the NSP process will be a lot faster than I think some might think. Obviously running things concurrently is a risk for sure, that we don't want to move forward ahead too many steps and then have to back up a little bit. But sometimes, depending on what that end goal is, you sometimes have to take that risk to run things concurrently. So that was just a bit on the schedule. Just to chat about the sizing. Right now, I think we're at 10 acres. It was originally 20 acres. And so that part was just, and like I think we talked about at the ASP public hearing, was administration wanted to spread that out so that every parcel can be treated fairly with school sizes. And as the need comes on, that's when the shift could happen. And so we're probably in that point now at the NSP where we could make that shift, NSP zoning and those types of documents. That's all the information I had. If you had any questions, feel free.
Yeah, Sheena's asked you for, okay, I couldn't remember if it was left over. Go ahead, Sheena.
Thank you. So you mentioned you have a plan for the sewage, and Min just hasn't seen it yet, but you're presenting it. That was correct, right?
Yeah, well, we did provide a preliminary plan.
Okay.
And then this week, we're gonna provide a more thorough, detailed document.
Okay. And then there's also stormwater. So do you have a plan for how we'd be addressing the stormwater for that area?
Yeah, and stormwater, we don't talk about it enough because usually with stormwater, it's easier to contain and handle stormwater than it is sewage. So we don't talk about that, but generally it's to bring on the school site, we would have to bring on the pond that Christy had showed in her plan. And what we typically do in that sense is that pond is sized for the whole quarter section and probably beyond. What we would do is just build a bigger pond so that runoff can hold in there, and then we can discharge at a slower rate. So we can, by more land and more holding, we can contain that storm.
And when do you think that you could have that construction started or finished, or for, I guess, because if I hear you right, for the sewage, it wouldn't be a lot of extra work, so to speak, to make the sewage work, right? I'm thinking from my completely non-engineer mind, I think it sounds like you could do it like in a year.
Probably less, but yeah.
Okay, less than a year.
I would say, depending on approvals, once that happens, it's essentially going down a manhole and sticking a plate on a pipe, and then it's done. So that would happen fairly fast. I'm making it probably a little bit more simple than it is, but that's what it would be. For the storm, back to that question, it's obviously weather dependent. So coming in the spring, we would have to go in and dig. Our Aaron Ridge North Pond that we dug probably two years ago, that entire pond, which we wouldn't need here, we need half of that, but that entire pond probably took us about 2 months to dig and build.
Okay, so if I hear you correctly, like really by next summer, let's just assume that it was approved today. I know these are a lot of assumptions, but we just start the clock from one moment. You could, by next summer, you still could get both of those addressed, assuming that everything was approved.
Yeah, construction wise, that whole process would take about 3 months between grading, extending some pipes into the site, and building a
Okay.
30-meter long road.
The other question I had was the NSP and all the additional documents. So I realize this hasn't even been fully approved yet. Like, we're jumping the gun on this. I understand that. I'm just enthusiastic about trying to get this to see if it can happen. But there's the next steps that you'll still have to submit. So how close are you to being able to submit them after, assuming that all the stores line up and EMRB approves it and council does the approval as well next year? How long will it take for you to be able to get those other documents ready for submission?
It takes us probably a couple months. We were planning to start in December, so we're hoping that the MRB comes back in February is kind of the timing. And so we would work on it December, January. We'd be ready the day it comes back to council for second, third reading. That next day, we'd be ready to submit to the city.
Okay, so you're basically saying that from the time assuming it gets approved, there wouldn't be an additional delay for at least submitting the documents. Obviously, admin would have to review them, but it wouldn't be additional delay on your end.
That's right.
Okay. And then the other thing was the consolidation of the sites. So I know it's, in some ways, it's you care, but also it's like, what do we want to do? Do you have an issue with consolidating the sites to make it large enough for a high school?
No, we had planned prior to have it at 20 acres. At that time, and back to what Christy was saying, at the time, Landrex was working with the province on a P3. And so that was the conversation at that time when we increased it to 20 acres. The need is still there. We're still working with the school board, so we're still happy to have it at that 20 acres. And we were presenting it in the ASP as 20 acres. City administration wanted to dial that back and spread it out more evenly.
Thank you. That's it.
Councillor McKay.
Thanks, Mike. Couple of questions arising based on some of your kind of potential opportunities. So in relation to sanitary, and you've read the background prepared by administration, I take it as they have identified potentially two options. Not one of them was the sanitary pipe, but they do identify the fact that potentially you would need to construct either a permanent sanitary lift station with extra storage. Maybe the extra storage comes in the pipe, but I'll have to ask administration afterwards as to maybe they have to keep that extra storage available for some other purpose like storm. But are you prepared to potentially put in some dollars in relation to actually putting in a lift station ahead of kind of northeast servicing?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is dollars and timing. And we were committing, you know, if and when the NEST project moves forward, we had committed to bring on this lift station. And our lift station that we're bringing on is storing for many acres north of us. And so we currently don't want to bring on that solution today, knowing that downstream that commitment isn't there. And then upstream, we still won't have other commitment because they know commitment downstream is not happening. And so we were looking at a solution where we can implement very quickly and still have storage and still create, whether it's a year or two, right? Because if we were sitting down and saying creating this lift station would create storage and we'd eventually have to do it. But how can we, you know, move forward quickly, right, is the big thing for us. So we're committed to do it. Are we committed to put those dollars in today, not knowing the future? That's a tough one to answer. We are committed to doing the pipe.
Welcome to our lives.
Yes.
I guess another follow-up kind of question would be, I mean, potentially if we jumped ahead enough to get servicing to a school site, without actually going through the whole northeast servicing plan, but we kind of skip ahead a little bit. And like you said, we don't want to skip too far ahead unless we have to go back, and we end up going back always further because there's always consequences. But would you be willing to put a moratorium on any further development until the northeast servicing was approved? Because you really you got the school site that would basically potentially need extra water and potentially enough water that you would actually be able to meet fire regulations in case there was a fire.
Yeah.
But then you would need to actually have, you wouldn't have enough capacity if you wanted to continue to develop. So I mean, by getting a site temporarily ready for school, would you as a developer be willing to put a moratorium on any further growth until Northeast Servicing caught up?
Well, I think we've been in that position for a couple of years now, and I think every month, every day, we work with admin to try to say, okay, well, we're not going to do this over here, we'll do this, and it's been a juggling act for quite some time, and we've all been working through it, and it's been working great so far. And so I think we will probably continue to try to do that, whether it's maximizing out this pipe if it gets approved to a point where everyone's happy with. And then if that doesn't work, then we maybe look at the next option, which is the lift station and creating storage in there. And we'll always try to find a way. It's not a permanent solution. And that's why we're really focused on the Nest project.
Sorry, I apologize. I just want to make sure I appreciate the efforts and your willingness to compromise, and believe me, I want Northeast Servicing to go ahead too, but I also recognize the impact that has and the shifting in priorities that causes. And so
no, I understand.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure you recognize, I appreciate the efforts that you're trying to do, but please understand some of our challenges too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, I see no more questions. Mike, thanks for adding your voice to this.
Yep.
Okay, council. I'm gonna save any business arising from those presentations till we actually get to the council motion. So I need a motion for consent agenda, which currently has 6.1, 7.1, and 10.1 on there. Councilor Hughes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so moved. The recommendations in the following agenda reports be approved. 6.1, regular council meeting minutes of November 5th, 2024. 7.1, setting committee of the whole item, special events policy, and 10.1, bylaw 29/2024, electronic transmission of combined assessment and tax notices.
Awesome. Call for the vote. Vote is closed, and that is carried unanimously. So the minutes from November 5th were just approved on consent, and then of course we have a special events policy, which is, it's bigger so I can read it. Council, the motion was that we rescind our old policy on special events permits, which was council policy CS 19, and we approved the new policy, which is entitled the event policy, which is CS 26, discussed at committee of the whole. We're into business items, and we are over to Mr. Fletcher and his Q3 report.
Thank you, your worship.
Phil, do you want us to let you do it in two parts, the projects and what you've done, and then the financials at the end, or do you want to do it all and take questions at the end?
I am more than happy to do whatever you want. So it is presented in two portions, right? So the first portion will be the corporate business plan update.
Yeah.
And then the second will be the financials. So I'll pause at the end
Okay.
and see if you want to ask questions for them. That's not right. There we go. All right, good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm here, as already indicated, to present the Q3 2024 corporate quarterly report. As you're aware, it communicates progress around two fronts: your strategic plan and the related corporate business plan projects, and then also looking at financial update as of Q3, and in this case, we'll be forecasting towards year end. As you're well aware, your strategic plan outlines the what you would like to advance during your term, and then the corporate business plan then incorporates that into the how. What's not included today will be the day-to-day service levels, the delivery of services in the service level inventory, and that's because this is the focus on your plan, which is a change over time, in particular focused on your term. It's important to note that progress on these initiatives is current as of September 30th, 2024. So in point of fact, not current at all as of today, because those initiatives have been progressing to date. And if you've got any questions, we can certainly provide additional updates on the status as it stands now. Looking holistically, we continue to advance your strategic priorities to address current and future needs of the community. As you can see, 47 initiatives were planned to advance your identified priorities. And at the end of Q3, so end of September of 2024, 24 have been completed, 12 are in progress and on track. 1 was delayed, but yet remains in progress, and 9 are scheduled to start in future years. And 1, has been stopped as per your direction. Over the next few slides, I'll provide a more detailed overview of the progress, and I'll categorize it and link it to your strategic priorities. And this will include the progress of active initiatives, and status of other projects. I apologize. I should have had my camera on this whole time. Looking at the economic prosperity priority, 4 remaining initiatives continue to be on track. First and foremost, your number 1 priority, the Lakeview Business District servicing. A servicing design brief for the Lakeview Business District Neighborhood Plan has been submitted to the city for review and is currently under internal circulation and feedback. Preliminary engineering and arterial roadway design efforts continued under capital project ENGS 082. And on the 15th of October, getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, in 2024, you approved the capital charter in the amount of $62.7 million and completed the first reading of the Lakeview Business District borrowing bylaw. The bylaw will be presented to council for second and third reading, currently scheduled for the 7th of January, 2025. And once that bylaw is approved, funding will be secured, allowing the project tendering process to commence. Regional and sub-regional economic development, known as the Collaborative Economic Development Project, has achieved key milestones, including finalizing the partnership agreement template and developing the memorandum of understanding for CED implementation over the course of 2025. The focus for Q4 of this year will be on project closeout activities in the Alberta Community Partnership Grant reporting. Additionally, the CED working group will host an online information session, which has actually already occurred, for mayors and councillors to showcase the project's progress made, on the CED project and further outline plans for implementation of the framework over the course of the next year. Moving to the St. Albert West Area Structure Plan and Neighborhood Plan, it was approved by you in September. Administration is now focused on developing the neighborhood plans for the city-owned Badger Lands and Lakeview. This process involves completing technical studies, including transportation impact assessments, servicing design briefs, fiscal impact assessments, and noise studies. The natural area assessments, environmental site assessments, and geotechnical investigations were completed in 2021 and will inform the finalization of the neighborhood plans. The project team is working on extending the consultant contract to Q1 2025 to see the NPs through to completion. Finally, the update of the land use bylaw, the final and legal review was completed, and mail outs for the spot redistricting were sent, and the first reading of the bylaw, is scheduled for October 15th, but you're all aware that you've actually approved the land use bylaw. It's currently our current bylaw informing development going forward. Efforts are still ongoing to develop an interactive user-friendly version of the land use bylaw to update the city's website with new brochures. A public hearing, as noted, was take place and you have approved it. 2 projects planned to help advance the economic prosperity priority were completed prior to Q3. The first was Green Tape 2.0, and though the project is complete, I think it's very important actually to realize that continuous improvement remains a fundamental pillar in our approach in all areas. And finally, the investment attraction strategy was finalized with the heavy lifting out of the Economic Development Department. Your second strategic priority of the initiatives under community well-being, 3 are on track, 1 is delayed but in progress, and 2 were completed in Q3. The first is the advanced mixed market housing development, and conveyance and buyback agreements have been finalized from the city with Homeland Housing. On June 18th of 2024, Council, you approved $2.84 million cash contribution from the City Stabilization Reserve towards the development of 22 St. Thomas Street, increasing municipal support to 12% of the total project cost. That support strengthens Homeland Housing's application for the Alberta Affordable Housing Partnership Program, which remains the next significant step to permit development. Homeland Housing is reapplying to the AHPP grant this fall, and the staged development approach may be considered to align with grant criteria and reduce requested funding. Advocacy efforts have been ongoing in support of this very important project. The community amenities project planning is progressing as scheduled with ongoing site studies and the initiation of a functional study and partnership opportunity review. All these components are on track for completion by Q1 2025. The project will include updates to costs based on findings from the site studies. And upon completion, council will be briefed on the impacts of the site studies as well as the results of the functional study and partnership opportunity review to determine the next steps on the way ahead. The inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility strategy is currently being developed with assistance from the Colborne Institute for Inclusive Leadership out of Northwest College. They've been selected as the consultant to develop the idea strategy, implementation plan, education plan, and related communications plan. Internal communications have been initiated to inform employees about the project, and the consultant is conducting internal and external assessments, including all employee surveys, interviews with the executive and leadership teams, engagement with community stakeholders, a review of Alberta municipalities' idea practices, and an accessibility audit of the city's public website. The next phase, which will occur for all intents and purposes in Q1 of 2025, January through to April, will involve developing the strategy, purpose statement, council policy, and/or administrative directive, and a multi-year action plan, including education and communications plans. Project planning is progressing for a reconciliation action plan and Indigenous framework, which will guide the future establishment of an advisory entity. A working group successfully organized activities for National Day in Truth and Reconciliation on November 30th of this year, which was held at Mission Park. Administration also worked to enable the installation of an Every Child Matters crosswalk in downtown St. Albert. Ongoing efforts include relationship building with First Nations communities, urban Indigenous people, and Métis communities to explore mutually beneficial opportunities. Community social needs assessment and the feasibility study for youth transitional housing projects were both completed in Q3 of 2024. And 4 additional projects are planned to advance this priority area were completed prior to Q3, and that is enhancing housing options, ownership of community amenities lands, municipal naming, policy and administrative directive, and the grant review program. Projects planned to advance your priority on adapting to a changing natural environment have been completed prior to Q3. The resilient infrastructure strategy is scheduled to start in 2025. Of the active initiatives under the financial sustainability priority, 5 remain on track and 1 is completed.
Did you just skip over the environment?
I did not. There are no active
Okay, okay.
corporate business plan projects related to this if they've been completed prior to Q3.
Sorry, keep going. Yeah.
I was on the wrong slide when I spoke to
There
you,
we go.
however. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Looking at the long-term debt strategy, the project team has successfully engaged internal stakeholders to explore integration opportunities within capital projects prioritization processes, specifically focusing on municipal and off-site levy projects. The next steps include conducting an electronic scan of our OSL policies of OSL policies of comparable municipalities, integrating long-term debt considerations into council decisions, identifying points for budget process integration, and drafting a scope of work for the subsequent project. The mature asset management program is being revised to address new resource requirements in an expanded scope. Following the completion of the vendor evaluations and demonstrations for the Enterprise Maintenance Management Asset Management, software, which dominated the AM team's capacity during Q1 to Q3 of 2024, the focus will shift back to updating the governance structure and the related components in Q4 of this year. The finalized state of infrastructure report was completed in January, and I would be remiss if I did not say that this is a significant administrative priority to enable our efficiency and effectiveness moving forward. The digitization directive, looking at enhancing records and information management practices, has been sent for approval and is scheduled to be published on the internal website alongside related procedural documents. This directive includes a list of equipment requirements to aid in developing the tender for a commercial scanner later this year. The offsite storage service contract has undergone legal review and is now being executed. Additionally, an IT application analyst has been recruited to assist the team in reviewing the city's Microsoft environment and providing recommendations to assure alignment with records, information, and management directives. Ultimately, this is about compliance and ensuring that we have what we need when we need it and we retain it for the appropriate timelines. The procurement audit implementation phases 1 and 2. The website has been successfully launched, providing employees with information on procurement and updates related to improvements made based on the audit recommendations, and ultimately facilitating the implementation of our procurement recommendations holistically. The project team is finalizing internal directives, protocols, and business process documents to establish a standard contract maintenance or contract management practice across the city. The transition of the corporate procurement card administration function has been completed. And this shift and automation of previously manual processes has streamlined workflows, improved resource management, and enhanced time efficiency within purchasing services. The team is also working on an operational risk register and a companion guidance document to proactively manage risks associated with procurement, contract management, and payment activities. While balancing operational and project demands presents challenges, a more detailed work planning approach has been adopted to improve clarity around task timelines, team capacity, and interdependencies. The project plan for modernizing the city's budget, specifically looking at multi-year budgeting, has been officially approved, incorporating the latest updates. A successful kickoff meeting was held on September 13th, 2024 to initiate. Key upcoming activities include data collection from internal and external sources, as well as the analysis of our findings. Looking at process improvements for planning and development and capital project management, the review completed in Q3 with the consultant provided final reports and recommendations for planning and development and capital projects. Management office and 2 teams are now reviewing planning and scheduling implementation of the recommendations, with more information to be shared with council by memo anticipated in Q4. 9 additional products are planned to help advance the financial sustainability priority, and were planned and have been completed prior to Q3. Those being intermunicipal partnerships, revenue generating infrastructure opportunities, strategic alliance, merger opportunities, art and theater operating model review options that is likely to be revisited in future years, the 911 dispatch delivery model review, implementation direction for the 911 dispatch delivery model review, shared services for public participation, and the internal audit committee practice and process, and advancing integrated risk management framework and practices. One project is planned to start in 2025, and that will look at extending online options for building a development application processes. I will pause here as promised, because that completes the update on the corporate business plan in support of your council strategic priorities. And if there are any questions, myself or any of the staff will be available to answer them before I launch into the financial summary.
Can you just repeat who is awarded the IDEA strategy?
The Colborne Institute of Inclusive Leadership from Edward Norquest College.
Norquest College. Good. Awesome. And when was that awarded?
This was, I will have to get you the exact date, but bottom line is they've done a great deal of work over the summer in terms of the surveys and the interviews. It's well in progress.
Is that something that the council will have to approve the final strategy, or is it more of an administrative?
This should be more administrative. I think it depends on the scale and scope of what we look at as in terms of the opportunities flowing from this, but the bulk of it would be administrative.
Just wouldn't mind seeing it when it's done.
I would absolutely be happy to brief you on it.
Thanks. Any other questions before we go into financials?
I don't have a question, but I would like to make a comment. And Mr. Fletcher and team, you went through that in 12 minutes. But that is a significant amount of work of the city and all of your team members and leadership. Some big rocks were moved forward on council priorities. Lakeview servicing, West ASP, land use bylaw, multi-year project.
Councillor Killick, why don't I go to you for the motion?
Well, okay,
Is there a motion?
there's no motion. It's information only.
Yeah, that's right.
And therefore I was taking a little bit of a liberty.
That's okay.
But debt strategy, multi-year budgeting, all the rest of them. I think it's incumbent upon council to recognize that these are major steps forward for the city. They're long-term. They are council priorities. So I appreciate all the work that you and the whole team has done to move these forward. It really did deserve more than 12 minutes of presentation, but I hope I hope members of the public, even if a few of them take time to read the details, they will get a much better appreciation of the work done. It's truly great to see it moving the city forward in the right direction on so many fronts.
Thank you.
Councillor Mackay has a question.
Blame Councillor Killick. Actually, I do have a question and I had it in my notes and I apologize. It was in relation to the council strategic priority 4, adapting to a changing natural environment. You've got the one strategy that says develop a long range strategies that support adaptation to a changing environment and include environmental and climate risk considerations in all plans and phases. I notice in our budget documents, is that important then is that what the climate adaptation position is going to be doing?
That would be a key portion of it, yes.
Okay, let's go on to the financials.
Thank you. As of September 30th, 2024, you can see the highlights on the slide. 159.5 million in operating revenue was recognized, which is about 73% of our forecast, 3/4 of the way through the year. Makes us on track. As we look at the forecast through Q4, this results, and the expenses come out at about 68% of forecast at 143.2. So what of that is, as the team looks forward through Q4, the results in about an $8.8 million surplus forecast for year end. And I think it's important, certainly the team will be able to talk in more detail, to talk a little bit about the scale and scope of some of those issues, which you see on the right-hand side. As we look at higher net interest revenue due to higher than anticipated interest rates and increased revenue sources, in particular permits and fees, together account for about $3.5 million of that overall surplus. Revised ambulance contract with AHS netted about $600,000 additional revenue or income. RCMP contract savings, as you're well aware on how we budget, and then that's we're only charged, however, for what is staffed, works out to about a $2.5 million variance, and then salary vacancies and variances across the entire spectrum of the corporation account for about $2 million, which equates to the forecast of just north of $8 million. Looking at the municipal capital highlights, this chart identifies the progress status across all the municipal capital projects. In total, 91% of the 158 municipal capital projects are in progress or completed, with 53 planned to be closed through the end of the year. A detailed listing of the municipal capital projects can be found in Appendix 1 of the corporate quarterly report, and certainly we can answer questions, but I won't propose to delve into them in depth here. The utilities budget, as of September 30th, 2024, the city recognized $38.3 million in revenue and $27.7 million in expenses. The $278,000 increase in revenue is a combination of higher water connection fees due to development growth, offset by lower wastewater service charges due to system water losses not factored into projected wastewater volume and wastewater rates. The $524,000 lower expenses are due to the water purchase rate from EPCOR being lower than budgeted, salary savings due to some vacancies, and this is offset by a higher one-time electricity charges that were incurred from the Henday booster station or booster station. I'm pretty sure that's a typo. A booster station. This has resulted in a $0.8 million higher than budgeted transfer to reserves. This chart identifies the progress status across the utilities capital projects. In total, 91% of the 55 projects are in progress or completed, with 12 to be completed by the end of this year. A detailed listing, as was mentioned previously, of the municipal capital projects can be found in this case in Appendix 2 of the quarterly report. In summary, as of the end of Q3 2024, the city is forecasting an $8.8 million surplus through to year end. This is due to strong investments, and with strong investments, reserve funding, and low debt, the city is in a strong financial position while maintaining high levels of services to our residents and advancing your strategic priorities as outlined in your strategic plan. This concludes my presentation, and myself and the team will be happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Awesome. Can we get a quick breakdown of that $8 million that you kind of went through? Like just even email to us?
By all means, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Councillor Hughes, go ahead.
Hi, okay, so I went through those breakdowns, so we're gonna go through it together. So that number is really high. So, and I understand when I went, because I went and broke it down. So 4.4 out of the 8.8 million is from vacancies between staff and the RCMP vacancies. So how are we doing on the vacancies right now with the RCMP? Are we close to, maybe you might have the answer, Councillor Mackay, but how are we at filling those vacancies for the next year?
Do you want to go, Ken?
Yeah, I can provide that, and I've got another member of the policing committee up in the audience, but she's not listening. Actually, we're moving up. We're about we're still budgeting at around 70 officers right now. I think we're 65.
Budgeting for 65.
65, but then with the change, so we're right around 61. Correct, right now at this time frame. We've got a number of people that are moving into positions. So it's a good news story in relation to that. And it's based
Okay.
on the fact that we just had a public release in relation to a serious number of break-ins in our community. It's good that numbers are getting up.
Okay, so we're short by 4 right now, is what I'm hearing? And we were 10.
Four in relation to actually what our billable are.
Right.
We have our authorized strength is 75,
Right,
but we bill at 65 right now, I believe.
okay. So when I saw the breakdown, it said 2.5 million for RCM vacancies, and then it said 521,000 due to vacant positions. And again, it said RCMP. So I'm just trying to understand what the difference is for that. And I'm trying to find the page because I wrote it down. So it's gotta be under protective services, right?
Through the chair to Councillor Hughes, I'll start and then
Sure.
maybe Chief Cook might be on the line to answer. So there's 2 components. There's the RCMP contract, but then we also have within emergency services, the fire and the peace officers and those that are employed by the city. So they're distinguished between vacancies within city employees and then the RCMP contract. And I see Chief Cook is on the line as well.
You're muted, Everett.
Yeah, you're muted. Yeah.
My apologies.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the question. You are correct that some of these vacancies and that savings has been found within municipal enforcement. Just take council back what seems like just a few months ago when additional positions were approved for municipal enforcement. Those positions were posted, funding was provided, and we're still working to fill 3 vacancies out of 6. Which we had at one time, 3 being the new positions that were approved plus 3 through attrition. So we have realized a lot of savings from from those positions that have gone unfilled for a number of months.
Okay, and I mean, it is what it is. So I just wanted to figure out what's going on with there. We have a money that's currently, and I'm just that we have set aside in case we go over budget. But my understanding is being capped. It's been like we hit the cap amount. So now is it just rolling into the surplus every year?
No, we have that sitting each year in a reserve, so that is up to 8 officers in that RCMP contract reserve.
So we have like, I guess, how much money do we have sitting in there then? Like, is it for 1 year that we have 8 officers in there or?
Through the chair to Councillor Hughes, I don't have the information on hand. I think we might have to top up the reserve at year end because we did increase the number of FTE that we were going to be having. However, I don't have that at the moment, but if you put in an information request, we'll be sure to get you that information.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, because if I remember correctly though, like we're not taken from that. We got more money than what we need right now. So then what happens with that? Because every year we've been accommodating for 8 at this moment. So what happens when we don't spend that 8? It goes into a reserve, but then next year what happens?
So once that reserve is capped up, if there is a shortage, we top it up, but then the rest, if there's a remainder, it goes to the general surplus.
Okay, that's the thing I'm looking at is that how much, so of the $3 million for the RCMP, how much is it? That'll be my IR, I guess, is how much is actually going into the surplus? Because I just think that we may want to look at that policy. The other thing was, let me just get to my EPA pages here. That one's not highlighted. That's not good. Okay, so tax penalties and tax certificates due to higher volume, 66,000. We've been getting higher than I expected for the past several years. Would you agree with that? Have we made modifications to the budget to account for that?
Yeah, we've been trending up each year and we've increased the budget each year and we increased the 25 budget. I can get the amount for you in just one moment. I can check.
Sure. And then for business licenses as well, how much did we increase it for 2025?
Through the chair to Councillor Hughes. So in the budget for 2024 was 864,000 for business and license. We've upped it to 935,500 for 25.
Okay, so we accounted for that already as well. That's awesome. I didn't understand what it meant when it said 191,000 lower in professional services due to third-party education costs and delayed plan program changes under general government. I don't know what that meant. It was written in a code that I did not speak Sheena.
Pass that on to Ryan Stovall.
Sure.
Good afternoon, Councillor Hughes. So I think a while ago we had informed council that we were amending how we handled our abilities management process when we're using a third-party vendor to provide that service. The suite of services that we envisioned them performing hasn't fully been implemented, so that basically some of the programmatic changes haven't come to fruition. We thought we would be further along this year. We just aren't.
Okay, so do you plan to be caught up next year then, or?
That's the plan, and right now we're not seeing a need to decrease the amount. We're just trying to use it, just trying to implement it.
I hear you. Yeah, there's no sense in decreasing it because you're going to spend it sooner than later. So the mobile phone charges, when did we realize that we had this contract? Have we worked in that savings in the 2025 budget already or no?
We have incorporated the new contract into the 2025 budget.
You really are making this just a little too easy now, aren't you?
And through the chair to Councillor Hughes, though penalties went up from 1.1 million to 1.2 for 225.
Okay, so we fully accounted for that then. And then the recognition, because I have motions about service place, this is kind of relevant. I'm trying to there's balls flying all over the place right now when it comes to the money coming in and out on this one. So we have 215 higher in a recognition, not necessarily all service place, 134 higher in rental culture, and 70 higher in rental recreation rental. So how far have we accommodated or adjusted the budget for these three items?
Through the chair, maybe we'll start with Ms. Palovny, and then we can answer if there's any further questions on that.
Sure.
If I can get my camera on. Thanks for the question. So we have accommodated for an increase in admissions and memberships at facilities. We are responding though to your postponed motion for an additional opportunity to continue to increase those admissions fees. But we have increased it by in the 2025 budget by $183,000, which it reflects $35,000 in fee impacts as well. But we are responding to your postponed motion in alignment with that. From a rentals perspective, we are up by about $70,000 forecast in 2024. And we are budgeting for that increase in alignment with that based on fee increases and also on increases in rentals, mostly through ICE. Off-prime season is where we're seeing that greatest increase on that side.
Okay, so because when I looked at, I'm just trying to remember from when we discussed in budget, when I looked at the revenue before, there was not an increase in memberships in the revenue when we looked before, but we're saying it was 215 higher than predicted last time. So where would we find that 215 in the budget?
So there is an increase year over year, but what we are seeing is we're still trending upwards. So that's where there is opportunity for us to potentially continue to show some increase. When we build the budget currently that we start in February of this year, we based on the numbers we have in place, but we have seen continued slower, but continued growth on the membership and day admission side. So that will be in our response to you on where we can possibly continue to leverage some more growth on the membership side.
Okay. And then the 70,000 lawyer and rec programs, recreation aquatic program revenue due to park recreation facility closure. So, okay, I understand now, just because it was closed, that we lost the money on that. Okay.
Yeah, we actually saw a decrease of more than that, but we were able to make up some of those costs by offering additional programs at Grosvenor and Landrix Water Play Center. So the net result is a $70,000 decrease.
Okay. And then the culture, I don't think that's you, Danielle, but the 130 for culture revenue, that's also been included, I'm assuming then, or no? I don't know who would answer that question.
Yeah, it should be Miss Elizabeth Wilkie, who is coming up. There we go. Hello, through the chair to Councillor Hughes. We have accommodated for a trending increase. We've had a significant growth in commercial rentals this year. This is not in alignment with past trends we've seen, so we haven't increased to this full amount for 2025. But we will be watching to see if this continues into 2025 and would be making those adjustments in our future budgets if we are able to continue retaining this amount of commercial rental.
Sure, and that makes sense to me. You want to come in a little bit conservative just in case. How close are we to the 134? Are we like 50% higher for this year, or what did you guesstimate it at?
I don't have the exact numbers in front of me.
It's okay.
Possible that Ms. Finley might be able to provide those numbers?
Sorry, I don't have them offhand, but again, if you want to submit an IR, we can get that to you.
Okay, no problem. The other one we had was for the ambulance services. I'm assuming that we've changed that contract revenue that we have. It says 580 in contract revenue due to new contract for ambulance service delivery. That's already incorporated into the budget as well?
Yeah, it is correct. That's in the 25 budget.
Okay. And then, okay, I already have a motion for planning and engineering for their revenue, so I'm not going to question that. You guys can explain that in the PM. Okay, we didn't discuss it at budget about what we were forecasting the interest rate to be for 2025. So obviously the net for the interest income versus expense was 800,000 this year. We also obviously know it was going to be lower than last year. So what number were we guesstimating it to be?
We can take that as an IR, but the net in the 25 budget does net out to an increase of an 800K. We are overall expecting interest rate, like overall not to be as high as this year based on the interest rates being reduced, but we did increase it. And the net increase that we, between the revenue and expense did increase.
Okay, well, you know what, that's good enough. We don't have to make you do more work on that. I think just one more question. I'm the only one who has them right now. So water, let's go to utilities. So the water's 1.2 million higher than budget. And I'm just, so we got it because the water purchase rate from EPCOR is lower than budgeted by 453,000. We didn't amend our water rates though to reflect this for the next year, did we? Or was it just too negligible to be able to make a change?
We'll refer to Regan, who's online.
Sure. Hey, Regan.
Hi there. So our water rates get set with EPCOR actually after the budget process starts. So we don't always know exactly what the water rate's going to be for the coming year. For 2025, we projected $1 per cubic meter, and the interim rate has actually been set at $1 a cubic meter. So we're off by 1 cent a cubic meter from what we projected. So we're much closer for the projected rate for next year for the interims.
Okay, and then we can, if it continues that way for 2026, I'm assuming that we'll just modify that penny. I realize it's a penny, but a penny apparently equals to $453,000. So it affects people's budgets. Okay.
No, I think 453,000 represents about 10 cents a cubic. It's closer to 10 cents a cubic meter. That makes that difference, right? Because we actually had the 90 cents a cubic meter is what the interim rate ended up getting set at for 2024. And again, we were projecting $1 a cubic meter, so we had an 11 cent per cubic meter difference, I think, roughly. So,
is there a plan to put that like in the omnibus motion to amend the rates at all, or are we just going to leave it as is, or what is the plan on this?
I think we're planning to keep with the current $1 per cubic meter as that's what we were projecting. Even it's 1 cent per cubic meter difference, which is plus or minus. We'll just deal with it as a variance. We'll just explain it.
Okay, because I'm confused for a second, so please forgive me. I got lost. So you said it was 90 cents, and now you're saying it was at 90 cents last year, and it's $1 this year. Is that what I'm hearing? And that's why it's just a penny off? Because I was just thinking it was 11 cents difference, but it's actually
it's a penny off for 2025. Was the question? Sorry, we're 10 cents off per cubic meter for 2024.
Okay, I understand then. No, that would make sense then.
Sorry, 11 cents off per cubic meter for 2024. Sorry, go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, we have a bunch of construction things. This is not financial, but it's related to this stuff. So we have a bunch of construction things like Hebert's, like a 2-lane less of a mess, but a mess. Is it still good plan to be completed this year? Cause I'm like, how do you lay asphalt right now? Cause it's cold out. And we've got a giant hole.
So I think they have plans to do some restoration work along Hebert, but that won't be until next next summer. That they're going to be there was a grind and overlay that was planned for this section of Hebert, and we had them delay that until we were until we had our water work completed. So we are slip lining 2 water lines within Hebert and as well as 2 water lines within Sunset Boulevard. And the roads will be restored with temporary measures. It's not going to be permanent asphalt, but it will be temporary.
I saw both
And then it will be rebuilt again in the summer of 2025.
both
Sorry.
Dean and Tim flash on just in case you wanted to add to that.
Sure.
You guys-
Sure, yeah, I was just gonna add that, as Regan mentioned, the Sturgeon Reservoir project has the water line work that is impacting Hebert Road. So there was coordination with the transportation project, was the continuation of the construction of Hebert Road. So that is being postponed. Through this winter, it is going to be the temporary measure just to restore the lanes as they are. But then next year will be the completion of that work in the area once the Sturgeon Reservoir work is completed.
Okay.
So Regan did a good job with his answer.
Yeah. So just in general though, I don't, may not be you have to answer this, but of all the construction sites, with all the barricades, the intention is that sometime in the next couple of weeks, they're all coming down for the winter, correct?
Before the end of the year, I would say yes. Before the end of the year, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's it for questions.
Great. Wes and Natalie are good. I see no more questions. So we're good for the Q3 report, which is always so integral to budget. So let's move
Okay,
on.
sorry, Mayor,
go-
we do have one answer to the one
Oh,
question that
a
came
different-
up. I apologize.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Hughes. So on the rental income for culture, it was 270,000 in 24 and it remains the same in 225. So that would be, we would continue to watch and trend that. And if there was any adjustments and the trending was sustainable, we would bring that with the budget adjustments normally.
I'm just suggesting that maybe there's something you guys may want to put in the omnibus if you want to just review that, and maybe there's 20 or 30 grand or something that we think that we'd safely put in.
Okay, thanks for that. All right, let's get Tim back because the next thing on the agenda is the EPR agreements. Are you going to introduce it?
Well, I am. They're actually probably hustling their way down the stairs right now, so they were just waiting.
Oh, they're going to do.
So if it's okay, it'll just take a minute for them.
Let's take a stretch. Okay, so it's 25 after 2, 10 minutes, so 35 after. Well, we have to ask, we have. It is 2:35. I see Councillor Jolly back. Councillor Broadhead, are you with us? Councillor Broadhead? Is he there? There he is. Awesome. Okay. Wes, I can see you're there, but I just can't see your videos off. Okay, so we are on to EPR agreements, and do you want to introduce, or just want to send it right to Tim?
Oh, thanks very much. I'll send it to Diane if she wants to do any introductions.
It's like.
Well, thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Well, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We are fortunate today to have our public operations team here to speak about our EPR operations agreement. They did submit a memo yesterday with a bit more information because today we're just really focusing on the agreement, giving our CAO authority to sign off on the agreement. However, if there are questions on EPR, I know that they're prepared to answer them as well. So I will pass it over to Mr. Saunders.
And good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. So as Diane mentioned, we are here to request that the Chief Administrative Officer is authorized to execute compensation agreements with producer responsibility organizations on terms acceptable to the Chief Administrative Officer. So we thought it would be prudent for us to give an update on the negotiations that have been ongoing in regards to the extended producer responsibility. Also speak about timelines for our waste minimization work underway, our work with the multi-family dwellings or multi-unit dwellings. And I also have with me Louise Stewart, our Senior Manager of Public Works, and John Potter, our Manager of Transportation Operations, Waste and Diversion. And we have a presentation we'd like to share.
Sean to the rescue.
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for this opportunity. As Mr. Saunders said, we're looking for the CAO to be authorized to receive a compensation agreement and receive revenue on behalf of the city. And so as an update, because you've been hearing the term EPR for several years now, we just wanted to give you an update as to sort of how we've got to where we are and where we're going to go in the future, including some next steps and timelines. So just to start today, wanted to go through the current status, like I said, overview of some of the options that we considered to get to this point, discussion on where we're at with the multifamily 3-stream mandated collection, and again, where we're going to go in the future. So EPR, as you're aware, is the extended producer responsibility. It is essentially the province taking over recycling options within the province. The PPP, which is the typical household waste that you would see in your blue bag at your curbside, which right now we pick up curbside and accept at Mike Mitchell. And then the hazardous and special products, which are the car batteries, some of your more corrosive chemicals, the flammable products, which we accept currently at Mike Mitchell. So EPR for the province. This was launched in November of 22. We had to indicate our desire to be part of phase 1, which we did at that point. Comes into effect in full force on April 1st of 2025, so just next year. And we did opt in to the phase 1. Those families, multifamily units or areas not serviced by the city are going to be part of phase 2. Phase 2 for EPR right now begins on October 1st of 2026. So we had two options in front of us. One was the opt-in option versus the opt-out. We have decided to go with the opt-in, with the reason being what that does is allows us to keep control of our program. It maintains our service levels for our residents. It keeps everything absolutely the same status quo for them. But what will happen is the pro, in this case, Circular Materials, will reimburse us for those costs. We will not see reimbursement until beginning of April 1st, but they will reimburse all our costs, including some of our administration costs at the end. And then just quickly onto the multifamily, because it had come that we will bring back a bylaw change to council in the near future with a clause in the solid waste bylaw mandating 3-stream collection for multifamily units. We reached out to each one of those units and talked to the owners of the individual properties or their boards or the property managers and held an open house for them in October. It was well attended. It was very positively received. They were very much appreciative of the information. We explained to them how EPR is going to impact them on October 1st of 2026. They were all quite keen on this, indicated that the residents had been asking for it, recognizing it was good for the environment and ultimately will result in a cost savings for them because the cost of the recycling pickup will be covered by a third-party pro. The cons with most of them is the space. Right now they have space allocated for garbage. Now they're going to ask to be put in 3-stream space for that. So some of those units, that is going to be difficult, but we're hoping with a lot of time that they can actually adjust to that. And then they were actually concerned that residents just wouldn't sort properly. So there may be contamination, but because they'll be dealing directly with the pro at that point, they will deal with the pro and not the city. But we will help them and have promised to endeavor them by giving them information, holding open houses, doing whatever we can to make that transition quite seamless. We are coming forward with our bylaw change right now to propose to coincide with that phase 2 implementation so that multifamilies would be asked to do 3-stream collection as of October 1st of 2026. So then just to the timeline as to where we're going, today requesting that the CAO be authorized to receive this revenue, to sign agreements with the pro. And then by the end of Q1, we will come forward with changes to the solid waste bylaw. In respect of council's time, we don't want to come forward multiple times. We would prefer to bring it all forward at once, which will also include then the multifamily 3-stream mandated collection. Then April 1st, 2025 is EPR begins. So it's new territory for all the municipalities and we'll see how this goes. But right now, because we've opted in, it should be seamless. We are continuing with our current contractor. They are simply reimbursing us for our costs. And then looking at the utility rate to change as part of those bylaw adjustments. And then October 1st, 2026, we'll see the multifamily 3-stream collection come forward. That is also the phase 2 of EPR. So with that, that was just a quick presentation. And so if anyone has any questions, we'll be happy to take them.
Always happy to put a motion forward to receive revenue. So that's, we could have probably put this on consent. I thought about it later. It's just really an authorization, but the solid waste bylaw, is that coming in? You said Q1, but I feel like we have it scheduled for committee of the whole in February. Is that correct? Doesn't really matter as long as it's as long as it's before April 1st. As you guys all know, I spent a lot of time at Edinburgh municipalities advocating for this, and then on the ARMA board, positioning ourselves to be the oversight body, which is why I'm no longer sitting on that board because they wouldn't let municipally elected sit there as oversight, which makes sense. During the advocacy, and I said this to Bill the other day, there was hesitation from the province because this is going to cost businesses money, and there was hesitation from the province that the savings that we were going to get, or the revenue, would be kept by the municipality and not passed on to the utility ratepayers. I know you don't have the answer now, but will we know when we do the solid waste bylaw what the contract says and how that affects that line item right now that's some $7 a month or whatever for Blue Bag?
Yes, to your worship, there's going to be numerous agreements that are going to be pulled together, PPP being one of them, the curbside, as well as the Mike Mitchell Depot and the PPP that comes out of there, as well as the HSP. We're currently at a stage where we're ready to enter into the first agreement pending authority for our CAO to be granted the approval to enter this agreement. We will know in Q1 how these are shaping up. There is going to be the HSP, which is likely going to be the last of the agreements that are going to need to be put into effect for April 1st, but it is going to be a dollar for dollar savings. So there isn't going to be any savings that the municipality is going to make. It's going to be a reduction of the ratepayers' rates, both on the solid waste flat rate as well as the recycling flat rate, because the solid waste flat rate includes the administration costs and the recycling flat rate includes the operation costs. So there's going to be an adjustment to both of those.
Oh, interesting.
We've been working closely with our finance team on how best to initiate these. We didn't go forward with any proposed reduced rates now because we wanted to make sure that we had the agreements in place.
Yeah, and we don't. Right, that's what today's about.
But yes, there will be a rate reduction for the ratepayers.
Is it circular materials that?
Circular materials is our pro for
pro,
the PPP.
And this is my other concern, and I mentioned it when the mid-sized cities had and Ed Guggenheimer from ARMA was speaking to us. It's more the education of St. Albert residents. So Louise said it will be seamless, yet at the same time, we should be accepting more product. Like it says in the background, both hard and soft plastics. Right now, we don't take soft plastics. So on April 1st, could we start expanding what we will accept in the blue bag on the curb? Because it's legislated now.
That is, sorry, John, I was just gonna, that is correct. There is different terms and conditions in the EPR bylaw that we will be able to implement on April 1st. Part of the reason we went with the opt-in was to allow us to maintain that layer of control and to make sure that we were able to take advantage of all of the program. While
and I agree, because we offer a pretty high level of service. Yeah.
Right. So at any time, we do have the option of opting out, which then transfers all of the operation and financial obligation to the pro. But in the interim, we wanted to make sure that our service levels would be maintained. We could take full advantage of the EPR program and make sure that our ratepayers were the ones to benefit from the program.
But like, maybe I didn't say it right. On April 1st, can we put a clamshell from my raspberries in my blue bag? Those kind of things.
Go ahead, John.
I hope so.
Okay. Okay. And maybe we can
so-
talk about this when the solid waste bylaw comes. I'm just excited, honestly. I really am. I think this is great for the city and great for the environment and all these wonderful things, but I'm concerned with how it's not the city's job to educate on EPR. It's the pro. And until we have this agreement done, St. Albert residents aren't even aware that this good thing is going to be happening to us, right?
Within the compensation methodology, there is a fee or a revenue for P&E, promotion and education. So when we're opting in, it'll be a combination between us, Circular Materials and ARMA's information going out. As to what it looks like on April 1st, about what's allowed to go into the blue bag, still sort of up in the air. This is why we wanted to come one time as well, so that we didn't cause confusion. It's ever changing. I think you've seen that to some degree at the RCA, at EMRB and that sort of thing. So, but when April 1st comes, we'll have an education strategy. We'll have lots of information on the website about what can go into the blue bag. I'm optimistic about it. I'm more optimistic today than I was back then. Plastic films is an example. Absolutely. We're going to have the volume. There's going to be a market for it. It's going to be one-stop shopping for the supplier.
Yeah. And we're going to continue with our contracts. So GFL will still be doing curbside pickup. GFL runs their own MRF and they'll be accepting blue bags from across the region. So does it matter if the blue bag from St. Albert has clamshells and the ones from Spruce Grove don't? Or you know what I'm saying? Like it just all goes to the same place.
Yeah, that once the MRFs individual, like so circular materials as an example is the pro for PPP. They're in contract negotiations with who's gonna take their process our curbside recycling. It won't be us that's paying for it. It'll be circular materials through those contracts. And then, you know, there's some limitations of different MRFs around the province. The ones that are being built today have a bigger capacity to deal with glass as an example. Glass even might be accepted in the blue bag moving forward. So it's kind of changing every week. So I don't want to tell you too much yet, but there'll be a lot more material to be put in the blue bag than what's being accepted today. And we'll communicate those changes through education.
Okay, I guess to you, Mr. Fletcher, if in Q1, when we do the solid waste bylaw, if you need to bring forward a funding request for supplementary education, please feel free. I think it's going to be important. Okay. Councillor Killick.
I had a kind of a similar question. We say in the slides that generically glass will now be accepted, and yet we've spent oodles of time and energy telling residents don't put glass in blue bags and take it to Mike Mitchell. I'm a little bit not clear on, is that absolutely going to flip the switch on April 1st, 2025, or is it to be determined? I'm not quite sure.
As of April 1st, it is legislation, and the bylaws are in fact enacted on that day, or they're in place on that day. Just a little bit further on the education component, part of our agreement.
So glass will be required to go?
Will be available to go, or will be allowed to go, yes.
Allowed to go into the blue bag.
That's correct.
Okay. Sorry.
Problem is they break.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome, but sorry, go ahead.
Sure, and I was just going to add a little bit onto the education component. So part of our agreement with Circular Materials is to compensate us on the additional education that we will be undertaking as of April 1st. So that is part of this initial agreement that we are going to be compensated for by Circular Materials Pro.
Okay, and St. Albert staff doesn't do any of the blue bag right now, so it's not going to impact any staff. That's all GFL.
Our administration is responsible for still the same activities that we currently are. The contracts that we have in place will still undertake the actual operation, and we will be compensated accordingly. So right now we contract out the curbside pickup. The administration component is performed by City of St. Albert employees, which there is also a portion of the compensation that we're going to be receiving from the Pro to compensate for the administration effort going into the recycling program.
And the schedule, again, takes a lot of coordination and communication to residents. That by opting in, we still have direct input and control of maintaining that same schedule, even though it's now being done through an arm's length and compensation model?
That is correct. So that was one of the reasons in particular was the scheduling of the curbside pickup, that the bylaws do not match exactly what our current service levels are. So we opted in so that we could maintain the current service levels, receive the appropriate compensation for that, and ultimately observe how the municipalities that opted out, how things are going with those municipalities, how the scheduling was going, so that then we could be tooled to, if we decided at some point in the future we wanted to opt out, we could. But this lets us maintain full control of our current service contracts, existing service levels. It will be seamless and relatively invisible, aside from the additional components being able to be recycled that is part of the EPR program.
Yeah. And in October 1, 2026, I know we've talked a lot about multifamily, and I think you've kind of addressed that now they have to put a third bin out to be that third stream, blue bag stream. The other challenge I kept hearing was it was incredibly difficult to get trucks into those tight locations. Is that how are we going to get around that challenge?
Maybe I'll pass it to Ms. Stewart, who can talk a little bit more about the current state, but we do have a number of different scenarios where that is one of the constraints, is to able to get the different types of trucks in. And that was part of the discussions through the consultation.
So thank you for the question. So the properties that we service right now, because it's GFL is already very much aware and sends in the appropriate vehicle for those areas, which may be a smaller vehicle, it may be a front load, it may be a side load like ours. For the new properties that we do not service, Circular Materials has to make it happen. It's part of their role with EPR. So if some sites cannot handle that larger vehicle, then Circular Materials has to work with whoever they've contracted, if it's GFL or not, to get in there to pick up this recycling, work with those property owners to come up with a centralized point that can be accessed and in whatever methodology. So that's now going to be between Circular Materials and their contractor and the actual board of the condo area.
Okay, great. Because it takes that burden off. It takes that challenge off of what we were facing as a city, and places it more directly on the pro that's accountable for picking it up eventually. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And the condo owners are actually quite happy to hear that, because this was a little scary for them at first. And so knowing that now Circular Materials is going to have to work with each individual property and their uniqueness to make this work in the future.
Okay. And I think I read it was a 15-month opt-out if we observe that other municipalities, it's works quite well. We could still opt out, giving a notice period. So we're not locked into this forever in any case, right?
No, we are not locked in. We do need to give the reason they want the 15 months is because they actually then have to secure the contracts. So they need that time in order to get that on their end. But yes, we have opted in right now, as similar to many of the municipalities in the region. But we have the option to opt out. If we really don't like where it's going, we just have to give them notice. It's just then we start to lose a bit of control. So yes, but yes, we can get out.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councillor Broadhead, then Councillor Bermansky.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, this is exciting to be truthful, right? I know, Madam Mayor, you've been working on this hard for some time. My question is, so operations at Mike Mitchell, April the 1st, 2025, is this going to be transparent to the resident? They still can drop other stuff off at Mike Mitchell. They don't have to worry about not being allowed on Mike Mitchell or anything like that. So this is going to be transparent to them.
Through the chair to Councillor Broadhead, yes, that is another benefit of our opting in, because Mike Mitchell currently receives more, or there is more function of Mike Mitchell than the components of the EPR program. So through our negotiations, this has been part of the discussion, is what portions of our Mike Mitchell operation are related to EPR components. By opting in, we maintain complete service out of Mike Mitchell. It will be seamless for our residents. What this is also going to do is allow us to look at Mike Mitchell and potential different opportunities that may exist for expanding the use of Mike Mitchell, whether that be other users other than ratepayers. And further discussions are going to happen on that as well. But yes, to answer your question directly, it will be seamless to the users of Mike Mitchell on April 1st.
So we can still go there and drop off our hazardous materials and our TVs and everything else that it currently is collected there, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Councillor Bermansky.
Thank you, through the mayor to administration. With the onus put on the producers, was there any discussion that they'll stop producing, some of these things, like not as much styrofoam, not as much plastic? Because it would be certainly beneficial at their end as well. Was there any talks of that, like a projected change over time?
Through the chair to Councillor Bermansky, Anecdotally, yes, I think that is the overall goal, is to have the producers now have a stake in the type of packaging that they are going to be providing their goods in. And when they have the direct cost associated with the recycling component, it puts a little bit more onus on them to be creative. Our negotiations haven't been part of that discussion with the actual producers themselves, but through the research we've done in preparation for this program, that is one of the stated goals.
Right, and that at that point, it'll be lesser work at our end, so to speak. Okay, great, thank you.
I think to add to that, we're the last province to get EPR. So EPR is national and in the States, and some of the big producers like Kellogg's and they're already contributing to try to do better environmental design in their packaging, and we've been paying for it through increased design and packaging, although we weren't getting compensated. That was kind of one of the biggest arguments to bring it to Alberta. And the fact that it came late is probably okay because we learned from other provinces. One quick last question. Does styrofoam count as packaging? It's not listed here specifically, but
I will turn it over to Mr. Potter to answer the question, but styrofoam is not included in one of the EPR components. However,
we'll still continue to do it at Mike Mitchell, right?
We are going to continue to do it, Mike Mitchell. Again, that's another component.
It'd just be nice to throw it in a blue bag.
Yeah, and ultimately, who knows where EPR will go if there will be an expansion of different
700,
products, right? But John or Mr. Potter, do you have anything to add?
Not too much more to add. It's like glass being in the blue bag. So more to come on it, but absolutely we'll be continuing our program at Mike Mitchell, recycling our styrofoam.
That's a good one.
And soft foams for that matter.
Okay. Who wants to make this motion to allow the contract to be signed? Thanks, Councilor Mansky. Go ahead.
Had a hard time beating Councillor Killick there. Okay, that the chief administrative officer to authorize to execute compensation agreements with producer responsibility organizations on terms acceptable to the chief administrative officer.
Okay, I'll accept that. Any comments?
No, I think it's great. I'm excited about it and it's no inconvenience for the residents. What more can we ask for? Great.
Anyone else? Yeah, can't believe no fanfare, but we're looking at a 7.2% utility increase, but this will probably be one of the more significant and visible reductions in overall utilities to St. Albertans that we've ever seen. So that's good news. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I've been listening about EPR as well, because every time I have one of my meetings about waste, I get to enjoy updates on this.
Yeah, that's right.
And I can tell you that other communities are not nearly as far ahead as we are, and they're very frustrated with where they've had to go. So I think that just how fast we've been at the gate of trying to jump through all the hoops, and apparently it has been kind of difficult to actually jump through all these hoops. I just want to acknowledge staff that this has not been nearly as smooth as it looks like it just went through for them, to try to make sure that we were in the first round, because there are some that were hoping for to be in the first round and didn't make it. So I just wanted to acknowledge the work that has been done to ensure that we actually did hit that, the first phase. That's it.
You guys didn't have a choice with me as your mayor. Call for the vote. Voting's closed. And that motion passes unanimously.
John, are you ready?
Go
for the
forth and
snow?
negotiate.
Are you ready for the snow on Friday?
Yes, we're always ready for snow.
There's no snow clearing on the agenda. John, you should just be scared to show up here because they're going to get a snow question.
It's usually Councillor Hughes that mentions the S word.
I didn't know about the snow till he brought it up.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Well,
Starting
we
Thursday night.
rearranged chairs. Mr. Bannerman's been waiting for a while. So the next thing on the agenda is the property tax relief requests. Is there anything that we need to discuss publicly before I get a motion? Excuse me, to go on camera and discuss specifics. Did you have a presentation, Steve?
Chair, I have a small presentation.
Okay, go ahead. Is it? Like a lot?
So good afternoon, everyone. I appear to be sharing here.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
We could see the notes, but whatever.
We'll see if that disappears. Yep. Back to shoot. Choose this monitor, which is that screen. Choose share it.
You
Thank
guys,
you.
these. Yeah.
There we go. I am Stephen Bannerman and Senior Manager, City Assessor for the City of St. Albert. I'm here to provide a summary of the property tax relief process. The Taxation Department will receive several requests for property tax relief each year, primarily due to late payment. The reasons for late payment are varied and diverse. Administration can only make or reduce a penalty if we have made an error or misrepresentation. Further administration may only adjust the current year, 2024. Section 347 of the Municipal Government Act allows only council to reduce, refund, or defer all or part of a tax. Section 203 prohibits council from giving its power to the city assessor or taxation coordinator. This is now why we're in front of council. Importantly, council only has the ability to provide leniency in instances where the city is not erred. CFS 15 was developed for a number of reasons, primarily to provide councils a set of goalposts, while still having power to use its own discretion, as well as communicating with property owners what criteria council will be considering with each request. Each applicant is provided a copy of the policy and notice as to when council will hear this request. Some typical penalty amounts include $901 annually for a single-family dwelling assessed at $500,000 and $541 for a condo assessed at $300,000. And this is rounded to the nearest dollar, and it's a total summary of the penalties in the 2024 tax year. These penalties are non-compounded within that first year. So there are two categories within the tax relief policy: permissible, which is, oh, excuse me, I'm on the wrong slide. When considering requests, council will take into consideration fairness and equity, sustainability, simplicity, transparency, and efficiency of the tax levy process, and predictability and stability. There are three permissible categories for tax relief: compassionate grounds, exemption, eligibility, and errors. 3 of the 5 applications fall under compassionate grounds in 2024. We also have a single application in each of the other permissible categories for a total of 5 applications that were received in the 2024 tax year. Most utilized category for tax relief is compassionate grounds, and a sample is provided here. The property owner was in the hospital with a critical illness and could not attend to payment of the taxes prior to the deadline. A response could be the tax penalty or could be canceled. A standard process, the Taxation Department requires applicants to request forgiveness through a standardized form and the reasons for request. They are also provided with a copy of the policy and notice and date before council. Assessment tax departments will provide of the summary of the total applicants and tax dollars requested. However, the individual applications are only available in camera for council's consideration. The application forms often contain information of a personal and confidential nature. Property owners are given an opportunity to speak to council, hearing or address in writing. Letters are mailed to each applicant informing them of the council date and time of that property tax forgiveness will be heard, November 19th. And questions for council?
Is there any questions that you guys have about the policy itself or process? Because that's all we're going to do now, and then we'll go on camera to talk about the individuals.
And I just have a copy of the recommendation, the administration recommendation to go in council.
All right, Councilor Mackay, go ahead.
That council move in camera pursuant to section 17(1) of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act to consider outstanding 2024 requests for property tax relief.
All right, I'll call for the vote on that one. Okay, voting is closed and that passes unanimously. All right, let's go down into council lounge. Stephen? Okay, why don't we make the motion to reconvene in public first? Does anyone want to make that one? Okay, go ahead.
That we move out of camera, reconvene in public.
Did you get that? Okay, call for the vote. Okay, voting is closed and that is unanimous. All right. And then we have a few that we will be excusing, so we could put both motions up at the same time.
Sure. First, we were going to do the motion to keep the confidential discussion in confidence. Did you want that one at the end or?
We talked about not even needing it.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah,
We don't.
because
we don't-
it's a given. We're in camera.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay. We used to do that and we don't anymore, so it's probably a leftover holdover from years gone by.
Yeah. So for certain items, we still do it to just.
Do you want us to
ensure-
do it?
No, it's not necessary. It's
Okay.
really not.
Okay,
We're just putting up the two motions
Okay.
together.
and who wants to make that motion? Well, I think Mike wanted to. It doesn't matter.
Thank you. That administration provide tax cancellation, refund, or deferral in the amount of $313.57 for property tax roll number 101087 per section 10 of policy CFS 15 for assessment errors as outlined in confidential agreement number 3 of the November 19th, 2024 agenda report entitled Property Tax Relief Requests with funding to come from the stabilization reserve.
You can go ahead, do both, yeah.
Yeah. And that administration provide tax cancellation refund or deferral in the amount of $20,972.08 for property tax roll 101141 per section 9 of policy CFS 15 for tax exemptions as outlined in confidential attachment number 3 of the November 19th, 2024 agenda report entitled Property Tax Relief Requests with funding to come from the stabilization reserve.
And that number is wrong in the motion. It's not 20,000. That's not right, is it?
Yes, I think it is.
Is
I
it?
can ha-
Okay.
Yeah, I can have Mr. Bannerman take another look, but it is, we
I
double.
thought there was only,
Yeah.
okay,
I'll just confirm 1 second.
yeah, sorry. Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. It is. I was thinking of another one that was 2,000. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I apologize. Okay. Sorry, Mike, to interrupt that flow. All right, any comments on this? Yeah,
It's all in confidence and follows policy.
perfect. Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Voting's closed. And that motion passes unanimously. The next agenda item was passed on consent. And it was another one by Mr. Bannerman, but the motion was 3 readings of bylaw 29, 2024, which is the electronic transmission of the combined assessment and tax notices. So that is now passed. And we are on to civic and external agency council update. So why don't I start with the online crew? Wes? Got anything from CUDA?
Funny you should mention that, Madam Mayor. I'm currently in Toronto, attending
Still
the.
muted.
Yeah, you're muted, Councillor Broadhead.
How about now?
That sounds good.
Okay. Well, it's funny that you mentioned CUDA because I'm actually in Toronto right now, attending the fall conference and trade show, attending my duties as the executive board member for elected officials across Canada. It's been another very interesting conference, to say the least. Met a number of elected officials from across Canada, from Vancouver to St. John's, Newfoundland, that sort of thing. And it is interesting how often the struggles of one municipality are the same everywhere. And so the issue, of course, is the permanent public transit fund. How do we, as municipalities, make our application to that fund and be successful in doing so? And while the first portion of that fund is fairly well understood, it's the second regional component of that fund that is not so well understood, and what it would take, in fact, to be successful in what is actually the larger portion of the federal grant. What's also interesting is how the various provinces react and engage with the municipalities, which by and large hold the transit agencies, how they respond and react to them in relation to the federal government. And Alberta is not the only one where the province steps in. Saskatchewan as well, and quite honestly, Ontario. Perhaps a different reason for doing so, but it is all about making sure that the municipalities get the money that's there, and hopefully we'll get our share, and the region gets its share, because the municipalities and the regions in Ontario's they're going full guns blazing to get that money. So, and it's a competitive process, as I understand. So it's going to be interesting, to say the least. The other thing that's been interesting is the whole zero emission bus debate, and the question around whether battery electric buses are the future, or whether in fact hydrogen buses are the future. And particularly given that Alberta has readily supply. The question is, of course, how do you build your infrastructure to support the use of hydrogen? Because basically as it was said, basically your garages now need to be bomb-proof. simply because all of a sudden gas rises, hydrogen's flammable, those sorts of things. So those are the kinds of discussions I'm engaged in, that sort of thing. So other than that, I don't have anything other to report, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councillor Jolly.
Yeah, Youth Advisory Committee was great, and there's actually a recommendation that came out of that. So I don't know if that hit Agenda Committee yet, but they've just recommended to change the Youth Advisory Committee bylaw a bit so that their terms are September to September rather than January to January, just so that it kind of fits with the schedule for young people. So that was an interesting discussion coming out of there. Homeland Housing, everything's looking well, lots of advocacy happening for St. Thomas Street still. Thanks, Mayor, for attending that meeting last month with Minister Nixon's team and Minister Nally. And I'll also be joining Homeland Housing for another one of our governance committee meetings. So I chair that committee. That's coming up tomorrow. So that continues to go on.
Cool. Natalie, you probably saw that email from a resident today about the voting age. And
from Kevin, yeah.
Has the youth committee discussed it? I didn't want to speak for you, but have they?
I don't think so, except maybe, in conversation, certainly nothing formal.
Thanks for that. Okay, Councillor Bermatsky.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Arts Committee this month was canceled by administration with nothing for agenda. So I'll move on to the Environmental Committee, which again happens in a couple days. We're a little bit behind here. So it's some time ago we had this meeting. So we went through everything that St. Albert's doing at the meeting, and I look forward to it being provided for the public on the St. Albert website, because the initiatives that are going on in St. Albert currently are outstanding. There was a reference to all the upgrades in St. Albert Place, windows, doors, roofs, and all the savings that are in many of the buildings that are getting environmental upgrades within the city. Leggett Place, Jerome McGinley, Connects Arena, Mahoney Place, Beaudry, lots of upgrades in neighborhood uptake as well. So St. Albert, the biggest uptake for windows, the window grant was in Aikinsdale. So just shout out to
Interesting
for that. And the nice part about the grants that we provided for people to do environmental upgrades in the city is it was focused that in St. Albert where people are allowed to apply for one thing. In Edmonton, they have to apply for 3 things. So sometimes that's not as accessible. We had conversation about seed swaps and native plant exchange that goes on in St. Albert. So a lot of people are focusing on community gardens and really focused on growing their own foods, which is really exciting to see that. We have the planting. There was, let's just see the planting numbers here. It's quite a long meeting. In the naturalization of Alberta or of St. Albert, 21 events, 4,600 trees and shrubs planted. We talked about Alberta Wildlife Watch for specific animals, and we did discuss the sightings of new and unusual animals around St. Albert, and the invasive species again. So again, there's so much here to go over in a quick update, but I'm looking forward to us, tooting our horn online about all the good things we're doing for the environment in St. Albert. Thank you.
We should toot our horn more often. Yeah. Councillor Killick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For community services, it goes back a little bit to September 4th. I don't think we gave an update back that far. And we had reviewed the ad hoc event funding for 2 events that were retroactive had already happened in 2024, and that was approving funding for Poundmaker Powwow and approving funding for the African Caribbean event as well. On October 22nd, we spent quite a bit of time reviewing the outside agency grant policy to make sure that all members of CSAC understood that policy because it is very detailed and very specific. And that was in preparation for our next big meeting, which is coming up November 26th, where we have the agenda package out for 10 funding requests. And that will be a challenging meeting because, as always, the outside agency funding requests are about 10% higher than the amount available. So that appreciate our support team getting that information package out to everybody in advance so that they can read it, because it will be quite a long meeting. In terms of Edmonton Salutes, goes back to October 25th, which was a meeting for a large prep on November 11th activities. And we had an emergency funding request to support No Stone Left Alone, which was approved even though it was out of sync with normal approval policy timelines. And we just had today a November 19th organizational and orientation meeting, which was critical to align the policies for Edmonton Salutes with those of the city of Edmonton, as the committee, Edmonton Salutes, is a recognized subcommittee of Edmonton City. So our meeting rules have to follow theirs for making motions, attendance, tracking, reporting, voting, etc., and membership. So that was reviewed today, and our next meeting coming up is November 22nd for a more detailed agenda.
Awesome. Thank you. Councillor Mackay.
Yeah, busy couple of months. I'll start with the policing committee. Earlier this month, the city of St. Albert, the RCMP, and the policing committee partnered to install 2 purple chairs that are overlooking the Sturgeon River, just north of the Children's Bridge. It's just basically a recognition that November is Family Violence Awareness Month, and the purple chairs signify an initiative out of Nova Scotia originally around domestic violence. And the purpose of the chairs, and I really want to thank administration in relation to getting that set up, and also there's ability for individuals to actually access information that will be soon to be installed permanently on the chairs that will allow them to actually, if somebody was wanting to or needed to, would be able to access important information and hopefully supports. The policing committee continued to try to understand some of the changes that are underway with the Police Amendment Act. There's significant changes that are going to be put towards communities, police organizations, particularly communities our size, 15,000 and above. And I believe legislative, is working around some of those amendments. And I'm not sure when they're coming back. Do you know, Mr. Fletcher? Do they know? Do you know, Mark?
So I just actually serendipitously had a meeting today about this. We are planning to come back to council in February, but it'll go to the policing committee first. We don't know yet if it's going to be December or January. We're still sorting out the capacity problems, but we'll bring it to the policing committee first and then to council.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, so there'll be some potential changes to our bylaw, or if we even determine if we even need a bylaw based on some of this information that is coming out of the province around some of the changes. Also, for those members of council who attended the chamber lunch, the recent chamber lunch, the policing committee did a community spotlight, I think, which was very well received.
Yeah, it was good.
Very well done by the chair. So congratulations for him. In relation to Arrow, we just held our org meeting, and everybody stepped back and I stepped forward, and I was the chair again.
Congratulations.
And but just other news in relation to that, the province, remember, we were successful in applying for a grant of $50 million, and the distribution was going to be 10-10-30. Through some of the work that we have done, some of the advocacy work, we were able to actually get that entire grant upfront. So they just actually, it's in our bank account. There's a small holdback that is required until they get a CAC. But so that was good news. And yeah, so if things move forward, the plant expansion is out of the ground. The final numbers are pretty much in. So we look forward to actually getting it completed and having some type of a ribbon cutting sometime in 2025, towards the end of quarter 2025. Okay. Anyways, I think that's all.
That's awesome. Okay. And Councillor Hughes.
So audit didn't meet recently. Seniors, we met and have the Senior Service Awards, and we provided feedback on the advertising. It's planned to go out later on this month to just launch the program. And they were, members were very enthusiastic about participating and looking forward to seeing what comes of it. So look forward to coming that out. There'll be a larger campaign after Christmas because it's just more timely of when closer to the actual date. And the Waste Minimization Committee met twice, actually. So we had one meeting that was a joint with the South people, who turns out they also have garbage down there. And then also we've had another meeting since then. But the two meetings they brought forward, and we had staff were there for both of them, so I'm not telling anything that the relevant staff don't already know. But one of them was a program about Oscar, where you can hold up garbage and then it will tell you which bin to put it into. And then if you get it right, you can get like a reward. Like Tim Hortons apparently is doing this type of thing. So it'd be like, where does this go? And it just looks at the piece, not at the person. And then the other one was about actually putting cameras onto the garbage trucks and being able to see both what's going in and if someone's there. So the benefit to that would be that if someone calls in and says they haven't picked up my garbage, you could actually roll back and roll tape to see if that's accurate or not. If it matters, if we're going to pick up either way, then it wouldn't matter. But if you did, and the other thing that they did have is Leduc is doing this now, and they've had the contract for a couple of years, and they've decided to renew it. It's apparently it's not like it's still more expensive than just going back to pick up the garbage. But what they did find was that they had a 65% reduction in contamination after they implemented
with the cameras.
With the cameras. So the staff were there, and they know that I'm looking forward to having some kind of analysis about the cost and the benefits, et cetera, and lessons learned. So I'll just leave it to them to do that. But they, like they said, it was certainly not cheap is what their words were, but it was, they still thought there's enough value in that it was worth considering. So those are the two items. That's it. Thanks.
We have to maintain our waste diversion status as best in the region.
Well, it's just not the waste diversion. It was just that we keep getting diversion that becomes contaminated.
Yeah.
And in this case, it wouldn't. What the other thing they had was that in Leduc is that they've implemented a 3-strike policy. So if you call in and say that you put out your garbage and they didn't put it up and they roll tape and clearly you didn't do it, then after 3 strikes, I'm not sure what happens to you then, but they found that the majority of the people that were complaining were a very small group that were repeatedly complaining. And so it really brought down the numbers, and the number of people who actually continued to complain about it went down by about 50%. So again, I don't know what our numbers are for how many people complain versus that, but it did bring it down to where the offenders were deciding to put out their garbage a little bit earlier in the day then. So anyway, so I'm looking forward, staff can come back and decide whether or not they think it's worthwhile and why, and we'll wait for that.
Awesome. Okay, next, keep your mic on, Councillor Hughes, is the 13.1, which is your notice of motion. So let's deal with the waive of notice, read it in.
So you know what I'd like to do, Mayor, is I've been thinking about this long and hard all day. Actually, I've been thinking about it long and hard since I got the backgrounder. So I think what I'm going to do is just not bring it forward right now. And I'll just leave it for the normal time that would come in December, and I might just withdraw it altogether and put a different wording in. I'm going to meet with staff and just look at the timing. Because that background was very enlightening about just every single thing that was in there. And it was also enlightening to hear from Landrex and hear from the board and get some more perspectives. So based on all of that, I just want to meet with staff and see if there's something that, if there's a motion that's necessary or not, and what's reasonable. I didn't realize at the time when I put it forward that it wasn't coming forward just at budget, because typically it came up forward at budget. They've just changed the program to have it be rolling. And I didn't realize that until today. So I want to thank staff for putting forward that background just so quickly, because it was extremely helpful and it was not a short document to put together, and I was very impressed. But that being said, I don't want to debate something that, and then changing dates on the fly without having discussion about the ramifications with staff. So that's all I got. So
You are off the hook, Mr. Schick.
You're off the hook, and
But it's so nice to hear so we can see your lip.
Isn't, I was just thinking November's almost over and that is.
he started that in July. What are you talking about, November?
Oh, God. We had a good conversation on the third floor about how much we love Movember. All right.
So Mayor, just to be clear, I'm just not bringing forward the waiver, so it can still stay on the agenda for now, and I'll let
Okay.
you know if things change.
Okay, and agenda planning can figure that out. Okay. All right, so we need a motion to go on camera to do the chief administrative officer.
Sorry, Mayor, there's just some IRs or notices of motion.
Oh,
I think
right,
to
there's
read
one
them,
from
just a
Mike.
couple.
I know, I remember that one. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. That in consideration of current relaxations of parking requirements in the land use bylaw, administration review, CTS 03 residential permit parking policy, and provide a recommendation to council by Q2 2025 regarding whether the policy should be rescinded or updated, and if so, how, and that no new applications be accepted by administration pursuant to CTS 03 until the policy has been updated or rescinded by council.
Okay. And Councillor Hughes, you had one too.
Yeah, and I had that the land use bylaw be amended to add drive-throughs as discretionary use for the following property: Lot C, Plan 942, 3702, or 815 Stubber Trail, including any future revisions to this legal description based on the subdivision or condominium plan. So specifically, it was for the drive-throughs at the what is that? Mixed use site.
And that's it? Okay. Okay, oh, and she's got some questions that can be done in public, so.
Yeah, I thought instead of doing
No,
the
good.
other things, I just wanted to, okay. I forgot something. So, and I don't know if you'll have these answers or not, because unfortunately those people went away now. But the vacancies, so I know we had the vacancies at the 2.5 or 3 million came out, and then we have about another 1.4 of just general vacancies. And I know we've had this discussion before and I forgot the answer, but do we actually have it in the budget to account for a certain percentage of vacancies each year? Because this is like, so when we have that number, it's in excess of that budgeted amount, or what is the budgeted amount? No, for
Fletcher keeps looking. to see
general
if Anne's
staff.
gonna
No,
comment.
so the short answer to your question is you're absolutely right. We do account for some vacancies throughout in terms of that budgeting. I know that Anne and Ryan are both online. And I'm just waiting for them to pop up because they're best positioned to provide the answer. And Ryan, you're first. You get to start.
Sorry, I was multitasking, so can I have a question repeated?
Sure. So we have about over 1.5 million in vacancies this year. And so what I was trying to figure out is you have a budget for vacancies. And so that 1.5 was in excess of that budget. Is that correct? And what is the current budget how do you figure out that budget for just general vacancies throughout the year?
My understanding is there's some elements that should be discussed in camera, just on the nature of how we do it. So I'd prefer not to identify the exact value.
Okay, and that would make sense. I guess my question is just, when I saw how high it was, have we looked at revising that number?
So I've been in discussion with Anne in finance, and we are likely to do a review soon on this. The one complexity, and I'll just kind of elaborate on some of the vacancy component, is there's quite a bit of variability in terms of how many internal hires we have that result in cascades which increase vacancy value. The time to fill has been increasing. So in the HR annual report, you'll see a change over previous years. So it's taken a bit longer to fill vacancies than historical, which increases or actually decreases expenses. It's resulting in delayed hire. And the other factor is kind of just general economics with unemployment. So if people aren't leaving the city because of higher unemployment or certain factors, we get some kind of seasonality in our adjustments. So we're always trying to assess how much we offset versus how much we just accept, because you can't predict everything.
Okay. I don't know, it's obviously not gonna come for this budget, I guess, but I don't have, and I don't know all the intricate workings. I don't know if it's like we need to come back in April before we do the final thing and say, hey, you know what, we're on track for something and maybe want to amend it, because it's just so high that, and I know that like this year, but it's also like not high every year. So I don't really know how to fix that solution, especially now in public, but I'm just bringing it up that maybe there's something that we could do on that to look at.
I don't want to speak for Bill, but what I'll say is I think Ann and I are committed to reviewing that so that we have a look at it.
Okay, that's all we can do for now. The community Mendy site, I had a question about the BIR that came forward on this. So when we came forward and said that how much it costs for landscaping, and the price came in at 45 million, including contingency. And then it also said that that we're looking to do geotechnical and we might be moving things around. So didn't we do geotechnical before we brought out the site plan? Like,
Thanks for the question, Councillor Hughes. I'll start off and I will see if Danielle is online and wants to add to it. So we we did do some geotechnical prior to the concept plan, mostly for the servicing and some of those things, but we needed to do additional geotechnical as we start to move through the plan development phases.
okay. So, and the other thing, because it says that we might be moving things around. So I don't know. This is my concern, is that well, one of its part of it's the school site, but past the school site, we have had this site since like 2021, right? So we're pushing 4 years. And now when I look at the BIR, it's like we want 2 more plus years before we can start to do anything on it, including sod. And I'm just struggling with how long it's taking to make something happen on that land. So there was that, but specifically the other issue I had was that it said we needed 15 million for roads or something of that nature. But then I'm also being told we have a year-round road. So could we develop without putting fancy roads in there? Or do we have to actually, because when I look at the 45 million, I'm like, so we're never going to have landscaping. Like, it looks so big. That's my challenge.
Really, really great questions, Councillor Hughes. I think like there is a lot to the community amenities site, and if council want to, I know that we're planning in Q1 of 2025 to come back to council with some conversation around community amenities, to update on the partnership model, where we are in our geotech and planning, and we'll having more conversations early in the new year. If there's a certain date that council wants to have that conversation, we can definitely plan for that through agenda planning.
It's okay. I was just trying to figure out, like, so I'm not going to tell you to have it like January 12th or something, but like, I'm trying to just figure out how we can make it a little bit more feasible, even if we just did something. Because in 2020, when the kids built their own bike park and we tore it down and we said, well, build you one. But I think that they thought it would be before they had kids, right? So like they're already waiting 4 years. By the time they actually have the bike park, they'll be adults. Like, I'm just, I would love to see something. And I think that was something we're trying to do. So when we have this discussion next year, I just love to actually figure out if there's anything that we can actually put on that land now, even if it's not perfect.
We can talk about it maybe at
at the strategic
planning. Yeah, thank you.
And then the area structure plan for Badgerlands, I don't know where that is. And I don't remember where if we're doing anything or not doing anything on that.
Yes, Councillor Hughes. So administration is working on kind of the high level neighborhood plan for the site that includes I guess some verification of site location of facilities, et cetera. We'll have an update, I guess, in Q1. Yeah.
So there is something happening on there. We just don't know. We'll know later. We'll know soon what's happening.
Yes, we're still
Yes.
proceeding. Yes.
Okay.
And we'll share information as soon as we can.
Okay. And just give me, Mayor, just give me one more second here. I just want to make sure I didn't. If I have to, okay. And then the FTEs, when I read about the BIR for the FTEs, I just didn't want to do additional BIRs and it was after the deadline when these things came in. So I'm like, let's just talk. So there's 1.4 uncommitted FTEs, which is relatively low. And so what I'm hearing is, so it's all the FTE money that was going in there, it goes into the vacancy pool. And then if you actually need to fill the positions, it comes out of the vacancy pool, right? This isn't confidential. No. Okay. So that's what I'm hearing is that if at any point you were to say, or we were to say, okay, we want to remove this 1.4 though, it could still have a budget impact. Because when I read the BIR, it's like, it would have no impact, but it would, because we would remove the money from the budget, whether it goes to vacancy, to the temp pool or to the vacant IRs.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Again, I think in terms of the management, maybe I'll just ask Ryan Stovall to start with the answer.
Okay.
All right, Councillor Hughes, so I might need Suzanne hop on as well, but so the 1.45445 in the vacancy pool has no budget assigned to it. But when we look at our total corporate budget, if there's reclassifications that result in savings or other ways of funding it, it's possible that we could achieve either a full FTE's worth of funding or a partial FTE of funding in the course of a year. If we don't achieve that, if we don't come to a way to find the funding source, then we have to approach council, which is, I think, one of the responses that I worked with Suzanne on kind of alluded that there's a couple of adventures that we could go on to figure out what we do with that vacancy pool.
Okay, because so Ryan, what I'm hearing though is, so we have we have 1.4 people, and then they're not here anymore for attrition or whatever, right? And then their money goes into the vacancy pool or goes into the temp pool. But then really when you take them out, it would come out of that temp pool if you couldn't find savings from other areas, right? Or are we just inadvertently gradually just increasing the temp pool every time?
So I see Suzanne jump on. I'm going to give it a shot, and then Suzanne can correct anything I blow here. So the 1.4 will sit there as a vacancy pool. They're FTs that through restructurings or historical have came into existence, but there's no money. So if we can't find a funding source, that vacancy pool just sits there as an FTE count, just because council approves FTE totals, as an FTE count with no money. So it's kind of unless we can, I'm trying to keep it simple, find the money and marry it to these FTEs, that they just do nothing.
Yeah, and I think maybe I could just offer, and Suzanne, please go ahead and jump in, right? But there's well, maybe I'll just shut up and let Suzanne answer first then.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Hughes. So Mr. Stovall is correct. The 1.46 is basically just an FTE with no dollars assigned to it. So, and again, like he said, it was done through when either the money was given up through prior budgets or if something like a transfer. So the only way, so there are two ways. So the only ways that we could use the 1.46, if we wanted to have a brand new FTE, would be to go to council and say, could we would like to have the dollars, but we have the FTE count. So it'd be like a 0 FTE with dollars. The other impact is if we had, let's say we have a temporary person that has funded dollars already, And we wanted to take that temporary person and make a permanent person out of that. So in that case, we already have an approved FTE and we already have approved dollars. So we could use the FTE pool to take a casual person or a temporary person and make them permanent, and it wouldn't affect the budget. So those are the only ways that we could use those, use the FTE. But because we have a certain number that council have approved, we always keep that FTE count. So currently there are 1.46 positions that are not allocated out, but do not have any dollars associated with them.
Okay. Because the one thing I don't think the council knows, or I certainly don't know, is that every time we have a restructure, if we do this, then like, let's say if there's a restructure and the position was 150,000 a year, and then it gets filled by something for 80,000 a year, then the vacancy pool money is increasing, right, from the difference, because even if that were to happen, and we don't really ever discuss where those numbers are at. And I'm not saying we don't need the temporary staff. Those people are vital. I just don't have a clue where that budget numbers are at or anything like that. So I'm not going to ask for it this second, but I would love to at some point just be aware of where the trend is and if it's stagnant or if it's going up or what's going on with that. Okay. I think that might be it. And I just want to confirm that the admission, so the free admission cards, I thank you for that BIR, but the free admission cards that just came in before. So the service place ones, we have the 28,000, and then that is basically as a promotional thing. So those 11 things that we include in the annual pass, that's being attributed towards that. That's what you're saying?
Yes, correct. But I see Danielle is online now. Would you like to add to that as well?
No, that's fine. I think that sums it up to the chair to Councillor Hughes. That is mostly promotional and marketing materials that account for that 28,000.
Okay.
There is no transfer for the Positix or any of those kinds of services.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to clear up. So everything else that if we give away a Positech, we're not actually having the taxpayers fund those. Okay, that might make me withdraw one of my other motions because I think I have 3 relating to the subsidy program. So I might be removing one on that. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Cook, you had one too?
Yes, I just had a general question. The My City front end portal has been offline it says for maintenance for quite a few days. And there was some concern from residents saying, I hope this doesn't, as it's front end facing and customer data in there, that it wasn't due to being hacked. And if you have any comments that would reassure residents that this is just purely for maintenance and when it might be back up and running.
So I don't have a timeline. It is being worked through, but I can assure residents that the personal information is safe. There was no breach that would have resulted in concerns to residents. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just when we're trying to encourage people to sign up for utility bills.
It is the worst
Canada
possible
Post.
time,
Yeah.
sadly, with the Canada Post strike and a number of other things, but the team's working through to bring it back up.
Any contingencies on utility bills for just through the strike?
Yeah,
Are we
thank you.
talking
We're hopeful the strike won't last that long, but obviously it does impact our ability for those who are receiving utility bills via the mail. And so, encourage folks, information is on the website. We're doing our best to communicate. If you've got a question, please call us and ask, and we can provide the balance and work it that way. But clearly at this point in time, with the short duration, we're hopeful it'll be taken care of. If it's longer term, we will have to look at alternate methods of getting those out.
All right. Now I need a motion to go in camera. Councillor Killett, go ahead.
That council move in camera to have a confidential dialogue with the Chief Administrative Officer pursuant to Section 24(1)(a) of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Awesome. I'll call for the vote. Voting's closed. So we are now in camera. I don't see any need for us to be back in chambers. Nothing.
Counselor Broadhead, can you hear me? It's Sean.
Yeah, I can hear you. I was waiting for the invite to the room. Did I miss it?
Oh, there you are. I got you now. If you go into the rooms list, you should be able to join the breakout room on your own.
Oh, and how would I do that?
So do you see a section there that says rooms or breakout rooms?
Rooms, breakout rooms, rooms, breakout rooms. No, I don't see anything that says that.
Okay.
I have across the bottom participants, chats, react, share, AI companion apps, and more. And under more, oh yeah, there it is. Join breakout room.
There you go. That'll pull you over.